SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Important if you're driving out of Joburg for early morning flight connections at OR Tambo International. There's been a truck crash on the airport highway, the R24 Albertina Sisulu Freeway. This crash is halfway between the Edenvale exit and Barber Road. 3 of the highway lanes are currently obstructed, and there's a very heavy queue that extends right back through Edenvale to exit and back on towards the sort of N12 split territory. So if you're in a hurry to get to the airport, or you just got to go that way and don't fancy traffic, you can take N12 from Gillilees, go down to Boxburg, take the R21 north, run up through Jet Park into the airport that way. Just a couple of hold-ups south of Pietermaritzburg this morning. A truck crash going up to Pietermaritzburg by Market Road. Left lane is closed, and a stationary truck between Market Road and Ashburton on the Durban-bound carriageway just blocking that left lane as well. I'm Rob Byrne. SAfm Sunrise starts now.
SAfm Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
Hey, good morning. 7 minutes after 6. Welcome to SAfm. Welcome to SAfm Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. So today, I don't know if you know this, you might just sort of still be going, waking up. But today is Thursday, the 9th of November. Have you given any thought yet, any thought at all, to how you're going to feel in 5 weeks' time? It's not actually that long. I'm talking about Thursday, the 14th of December. 5 weeks, count them, 1, 2, 3, that's 5 Mondays from now, right? And the vibe you're going to feel. Do you know what tomorrow will be? It'll be Siya Kolisi Day. I think that's what we're going to call it. It'll be the Rugby World Cup victory public holiday. We'll probably have to have 2 of those a year if we win another one. Then we're going to go into the Christmas season. And you may be going home. You may be going to Limpopo. You may be going to the Eastern Cape. You may be going to KwaZulu-Natal. You may be going away with family, with friends, with new family, with maybe new friends, maybe old friends. Probably the new family is going to be the most interesting holiday. But have you given any thought to it? Have you even had a moment? Or, I think like so many, are you thinking, I'm actually going to be at home, I'm not working, I don't have money to go anywhere, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Well, we're going to put all of that together for you from 8:30, and it is just a moment. Just take that 10 seconds to go, 5 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now. Just take that moment. Maybe it'll help you get through the rest of this week. So much going on at the moment, of course. President Cyril Ramaphosa, he was talking yesterday about corruption. The big National Anti-Corruption Council, they're having their big thing at the moment. It's 2 days. Professor Rose Kachalia. I've always found him a very thoughtful man. You know, a lot of the people we speak to actually are thoughtful, but a very thoughtful man. I'm hoping that we'll get to speak to him tomorrow. I know Stanza put in a bid for this morning, but I think he must be very busy at the moment. But we'll try again for tomorrow. But President Cyril Ramaphosa speaking there and saying that South Africa is wounded by corruption. It seeped into every aspect of government. He said it's the sort of greatest failure, and its greatest damage, he said, is the damage that it does to the belief in democracy. And I think what he means is, when we hear these calls for a dictator or something, it's that belief in democracy that is weakened by corruption, but also by crime. I'm going to talk a bit more about that later. And I was reminded when the president was speaking yesterday of how long we've actually been living like this, because in 2007, famously, Kgalema Motlanthe, he was the Secretary General of the ANC then, before he became president and then deputy president. He said, it was a famous interview he gave to Financial Mail and Carol Payton, the journalist. He said, "The rot is across the board." That was the slogan. That was the sort of headline quote. The rot is across the board. And I mean, what President Ramaphosa was saying is they really sort of reiterates that so many years later. And then Chief Justice Raymond Zondo spoke yesterday. He made an interesting comment. I mean, he spoke a lot about what he called the sort of Gupta Zuma state capture. He was very clear about how he termed that, by the way. He wasn't beating around the bush. He kept saying, Gupta Zuma sort of state capture. But he also said that he has complete faith in Shamila Batohi as the head of as the National Director of Public Prosecutions, the head of the NPA. But he also said that there was a time when Advocate Vusi Pikoli, was in charge of the NPA, and his term was disrupted. And I got the sense, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I got the sense from Chief Justice Zondo that he was actually suggesting that when Batohi's term ends, maybe Pikoli should sort of get to resume his term. Interesting idea. He said he sees him as a completely independent man. And I think the history on that is probably pretty solid. Lots of other things going on at the moment. In the Middle East, And my heart still, I sort of, I don't know why, but I sort of think of my own children really when I think of what's happening in the Middle East. Yesterday, on the main highway going to the south of Gaza, there's a sort of, in inverted commas, a safe passage. Sort of granted, again, I suppose, in inverted commas, by the Israeli Defense Force. 50,000 people walking on that highway. Now, just think about this. This is 50,000. I mean, this is like something that happened 100 years ago, during World War I. We had all of these people fleeing conflict. And I understand people saying you just walk past bodies. I mean, it's just... the UN saying 70% of people in Gaza have been displaced, lost their homes. 10,569 is the number of Palestinians dead. And, I mean, I've asked this question before. How does it end? What is the end game here? How does it end? And I sort of almost need to wipe my face a little bit when I sort of talk to you about it, because it's just so horrible. The UCT story, Professor Mamokgethi Bakeng, that's still going. The findings against her, scathing findings. And I see some of the members of Parliament on the sort of Higher Education Committee in Parliament yesterday talking about it, seeming to sort of say almost that they don't accept the findings of the report. One of the MPs, I think an ANC MP, saying, we don't really know if this report was correctly done. And I say, well, look, you're basically saying that the former judge president of the Supreme Court of Appeal, Judge Lexham Party, are you going to argue with him? I mean, I'll watch. But, I mean, it just seemed to me, have you read the report? Have you gone through it? I mean, the witness testimony is there. Professor Bakeng has said that she's seeking consulting a legal team. We'll wait to see if that happens. But, you can argue with judge and party if you like. But still, I was a bit surprised by that. And then license discs. You know how I feel about license discs, and maybe it's just me. I like to ask questions about what they actually do. And we spoke to the road traffic management people last week. I think they were a bit annoyed that I sort of kept asking. But what purpose does it serve? You fill in a form, you get a disc, and no one checks anything, so what's the point? I know it's just revenue for the province, which, okay, but then let's call it a tax. Mpumalanga lost 35 million rands worth of income due to license disc fraud through 2 centres in just 3 days. And did I read that right? Du's nodding, thank you. He doesn't always nod at me. 3 days, just 3 days, they lost 35 million rand. Wow. And surely you can trace the money. All right, lots to talk about as always this morning. I'll talk a bit more about crime and Sindisiwe Chikunga. I think many people have been sort of thinking about her, the transport minister who was robbed, but also what happened in Randburg. We'll talk about that in a little while. The number 086 000 2032, your SMS 41391, you tweet SAfm Radio, and at Stephen Grootes, you send your WhatsApp voice notes to 0614104107. Good morning, nice to have you along, 14 after 6.
Come closer. Over here. Man, oh man, do I have something to tell you. Huh? You know what would happen if you weren't here? No SABC Sport, no Lesilo, no Isidingo, no Jam Alley, no Fetcook Ballets, no family meetings, no radio, no nothing. Just Dololo silence, huh? But you, my friend, you make it happen. Because you pay your home and business TV license. Now we can Expresso, Skim Sam, Mubango, Hectic 99, and Live Amp Kuze Kuse, Chovicho. So please keep on keeping on and doing the right thing. So we can make new memories and tell stories for the now generation. SABC TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference. Have you ever noticed how unique the rugby ball is?
You should check out Head High.
The rise of junior rugby stars Mana and Tai.
Vince is not just their stepfather, he's their coach.
Catch the brothers' dream of the black jersey. Head High, every Sunday at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
Hashtag Rugby Drama Galore.
Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Daily News Diary on SAfm.
And Musa, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. So lots going on. A busy day yesterday. More conversations around corruption coming today, I presume.
Yes, it is day 2 of that national dialogue that's taking place today.
What else is going on today?
Well, the Electricity Minister, Hussein Siramogopa, is visiting two power stations, Medupi and Matimba, and he has started a program to inspect the power stations to basically identify problems that are contributing to load shedding. Then we also have the case against the former Eskom CEO, Matsela Koko, and 18 others that will continue at the Middelburg Specialized Crimes Court, and the court is currently hearing an inquiry after the state requested a 4-month postponement and the defense asking the court to strike the matter off the roll. In the Northern Cape, the convicted former ANC chair John Block is expected to appear in the High Court. They're facing a defamation suit brought by the former judge president of the High Court, Frans Gomo, and Block and his legal team are being sued by the former judge president for alleging that he influenced the court's decision to find Block guilty of fraud and corruption, and this was during his corruption trial in 2016.
It's such an interesting case because the roots of this are so deep. It goes back so long, and also quite extraordinary claims in a way that are being made here.
Definitely, because also that tomorrow his remission case is taking place. So yeah.
Yeah, well, let's see how it pans out.
Yeah. The Mehiwa murder trial continues with the state prosecutor George Buloy expected to review the testimony of Sergeant Vuzimusi Mukhane. Today, Mukhane is one of the investigating officers called to testify in the ongoing trial at the High Court in Pretoria. Yesterday, Zandile Mshololo, who is representing the fifth accused, questioned him about whether the second accused, that is Bongani Ntanzi, had slept prior to making one of the alleged confession statements at the Morocco police station on the 19th of June in 2020. And then in Cape Town, the 4 accused, that's including a current and former City of Cape Town official, are expected to appear in the Blue Downs Magistrates Court. They've been implicated in fraud in connection with a 900,000 rand housing project, and they were arrested last month for alleged housing fraud in a site and service project in Mfuleni. And just lastly, the ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula is to open a case of criminal injuria against a businessman who has accused him of soliciting a bribe of 500 million rand, and the ANC will also have a briefing later where it will discuss these issues.
Yeah, so many different issues coming around about this, and again, it sort of almost ends where we start, the issues around corruption that are continuing today. And Musa, thank you very much indeed. We'll be listening on the radio this morning, 19 minutes after 6 o'clock.
Stephen Grootes on SAfm.
Let's have a look at your weather around the country this morning. Tshwane, fine, becoming partly cloudy in the afternoon, 13 and 28. Johannesburg, fine, partly cloudy later, 11 and 26. Vereeniging, fine, partly cloudy in the afternoon, 12 and 28. Bombela, partly cloudy, isolated showers and rain, 14 and 25. Polokwane, partly cloudy, fine in the morning, 17 and 23. Mahakeng, fine, 16 and 31. Vryburg, fine, 14 and 33. Mangaung, fine, 12 and 30. Kimberley, fine, 15 and 33. Uppington, fine, 15 and 35. Cape Town, fine, a moderate to fresh southeasterly, 14 and 25. George, fine, a light southeasterly, 10 and 22. Gqeberha, fine, a moderate to fresh southwesterly wind, 11 and 21. East London, partly cloudy, a moderate to fresh southwesterly, 14 and 20. eThekwini, cloudy, isolated showers and rain, a gentle northerly wind, 17 and 22. Richards Bay, cloudy, isolated showers and rain, a gentle to moderate easterly wind, 19 and 23. And Pietermaritzburg, cloudy, isolated showers and rain, 13 and 20.
It's about a little more than just an X on that ballot paper. It's about SAfGov knowing what I want, where I'm going, and who I want to take with on this journey. To me, it's not just a vote. It's my democracy. I own it. So show up and register for what you stand for. From Giyani to Umlazi, Pitori to Matatiele. Bring your green barcoded ID, smart card or temporary ID certificate. Stations open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 18 to 19 November 2023. Or register online by going to elections.org.za or call 0800 11 8000. It's your democracy. Own it. Brought to you by the IEC.
Manchester United are only interested in maximum points to keep their fans delighted.
Fernandez, a captain's goal.
However, Luton Town FC are not willing to travel back to Kenilworth Road without the valuable 3 points.
If it's a Tahitom, listen to that noise.
Will the Red Devils seal victory at Old Trafford, or will the Hatters prevail away from home? This is the Premier League. Catch Catch the thrilling encounter between Manchester United and Luton Town FC. The Saturday, 11 November at 4 p.m. Live on S3. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international or global news.
21 minutes after 6, it's not so bad. Tomorrow is Friday. In the US, voters have elected to reject bans on abortions in several states, including states that are often described as generally conservative. They've also elected a Democrat back as governor of Kentucky. At the same time, Democrats appear to be making progress in these states, but there are new national polls that show that former President Donald Trump would win more votes than the current President Joe Biden in next year's election. Trump is currently facing several legal trials related to his unfactual claim that the US elections were stolen from him in 2020. He faces other charges relating to how he's been running his businesses. Brooks Spector is an expert on US politics and associate editor at Daily Maverick. Brooks, good morning and thanks for your time this morning. It seems to me almost contradictory. On the one side, you have Democrats winning some of these races in conservative places, particularly winning abortion votes, and yet Biden is less popular than Trump. What's really going on?
Well, good morning, Stephen. Good morning to your listeners. One of the things that we need to keep in mind, of course, when you look at U.S. elections, especially off-year elections like this one, is that they are, to a considerable degree, not national elections. That is to say, they're dominated by local or statewide concerns rather than broad national ones. The polling that you cited talks to the question of, in the next presidential election, i.e. 363 days from now, who would you vote for? And it went through 6 battlegrounds, what they call battleground states, states that were the key to the Biden win in 2020. The elections in Kentucky and Mississippi and the referendum in Ohio and the fact that in Virginia the state legislature went entirely Democratic as well, those were all, to some considerable degree, on local questions rather than who do you support for the president, because the president wasn't running.
There's so many things to this. I mean, the issue of abortion not a political issue in South Africa, although I think we're the only other country apart from the US where it's been decided by courts. It is in the US, a huge political issue there. The Supreme Court ruled that a woman does not have a right to abortion. Some states completely banned abortion. And the Democrats are obviously using this to get votes, and it seems to be working for them.
Yes, well, abortion was, once that Supreme Court decision came out, it was quite clear that this was going to be the preeminent social policy issue in the country. And now that it's no longer a national right as was secured previously, it's being fought over state by state by state. And in a fairly conservative state like Ohio, one that has often, not every time, but often gone Republican in presidential elections, the voters resoundingly decided that they supported a woman's right to reproductive freedom. And that shouldn't be a surprise, particularly because national polling says that on the whole, if you take all Americans together, on the whole, Americans support it as well. What was a surprise was that it stayed so important in a place like Ohio. I mean, the one I was watching in particular, though, was the race in Virginia. Virginia is now sometimes seen as a purple state rather than blue or red in the simple version. And the governor, Republican Glenn Youngkin, has been touted by some people as the kind of Republican with Trump-esque ideas, but with a much more engaging personality and a much more effective governing style. He decided that, he supported an effort to win the state legislature for his party, and that was defeated as well. The Democrats won majority in both houses of the Virginia state legislature. All of this says that when you really get into the primaries, which are coming up beginning in January, which is not very far from now, the nature of the Republican Party challenge is going to be a little bit more difficult to ascertain than simply, are you in favor of Donald Trump running for re-election again?
And Brooks, very quickly, if you can, and possible, obviously a Trump victory next year would have huge ramifications for Ukraine, that we understand. What would it do with Israel and Gaza?
Well, it seems what it would do would be that despite Donald Trump's protestations that if he'd been president, such things would never have happened in the first place, the Republican Party seems generally united about preparing and providing military and economic assistance to Israel. That possibly would not change. Ukraine, as you quite rightly point out, it would be a much more uphill fight to continue military assistance to that country in its struggle.
Brooks Spector, thank you very much indeed, Associate Editor at Daily Maverick, as you can hear, an expert on U.S. politics. 27 minutes after 6.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai Khan, good morning.
Good morning.
Kaiser Chiefs, they won.
Imagine it is the way now. They hung on. 3-2 was their victory over Cape Town Spurs. It was a PSL clash that played at an empty FNB stadium last night. The game went ahead with no fans at the 90,000 capacity venue after Chiefs received a stadium ban due to unruly behavior from fans on multiple occasions this season. But here's their coach, Kevin Johnson.
You've got to give credit to Cape Town Spurs. I thought they gave us a good run for our money. But we've been working very hard at being a lot calmer, playing the ball better, getting the ball in certain areas that we think we can hurt teams. And I thought the 3 goals we scored were the way we trained.
Elsewhere, Real Sociedad edged closer to a place in the knockout stage of the Champions League with a 3-1 win over Benfica in Group D, which ended the Portuguese side's hopes of reaching the last 16. The other match saw Manchester United, their hopes of reaching the Champions League knockout stage. A blow was dealt. They had a 4-3 defeat by FC Copenhagen in Denmark. In the meantime, Arsenal within touching distance of qualifying for the Champions League knockout stages as they had a 2-0 win against Sevilla.
Lovely turn by Martinelli. Flag stays down against Saka. Right hand side of the penalty area. Saka cuts back. Saka goes for goal. It's brilliant.
On to cricket, and the Proteas bowling coach Eric Simons has stated South Africa may have already qualified for the semi-finals, but according to Simons, they have every intention of keeping their standards against Afghanistan and have studied the Asians' loss to Australia for guidance. The match kicks off tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. First ball being bowled, and you can catch it live on SABC3. More cricket, Ben Stokes, he smashed his first World Cup century as England picked up a consolation win over Netherlands in Pune yesterday. The victory means England still have a chance to salvage a place at cricket's next global tournament. That's the Champions Trophy in 2025. Chasing a target of 339 for 9, Netherlands were skittled out for 179 all out. And finally, Formula One, the governing body, the FIA, has postponed a hearing into the Haas team's attempt to change the results of the United States Grand Prix. The hearing was due to take place yesterday, but has been delayed to give the stewards time to independently consider these submissions made. It will reconvene this afternoon at 3 p.m. The case relates to potential track limits transgressions by Williams' Alex Albon, who finished 9th in the race. We'll keep a close eye on these and other stories. Headlines top of the hour.
Formula One and lawyers, what could possibly go wrong?
What? We'll bring you more top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thanks very much indeed. Good morning. Well, in the next half hour, we'll talk about a suggestion that, in fact, the president should intervene in the coalition politics in the city of Joburg. That to come. You're with SAfm, leading the conversation. No load shedding now. Stage 2 later, 6:30.
nicely. The N1 South just starting to backlog into the traffic restrictions at the R21. If you're coming from Pretoria, as we keep saying, go earlier than normal. If you leave it much later, you'll find yourself through the middle of rush hour this morning, backlogging somewhere around the N4, Emleth Split, Linwood Road. It'll get very heavy as we go from here. Early morning queues on Durban's N2 South into Spaghetti Junction. It looks like there might be an additional lane restriction in that work section between Mgena Road and Spaghetti Junction. Traffic already backed up towards the Inanda Road. That's very heavy for this time of morning. Cape Town, the N2 inbound from Khayelitsha, just moving slowly towards the sort of airport runway area, and then a crash inbound a little bit further on the N2 at Bunga Avenue. All lanes are open, but as the volume increases and people have a look at it, it gets a bit busy on the way in from the airport. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
The business update on SAfm.
Ray Machlaka, good morning.
Good morning. Hi there.
Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, both markets are mixed, with Asian markets being mostly up. Investors are reacting to news that inflation in China fell by 0.2% in October. China is one of the few countries where consumer and producer inflation is falling amid weak retail spending and a decline in the manufacturing sector, and there is no pressure for China's central bank to increase interest rates. So in Asian markets, Japan's Nikkei is up 1%, China's Shanghai Composite is up 0.1%, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng is down 0.3%. In US markets, Nasdaq, Dow Jones, and S&P futures are each down 0.1%, and the dollar to the rand is 18.48.
And then Ford's investing 5.2 billion rand. They're going to build the plug-in Ranger. It's a hybrid, what we would call it a bakkie. They call it a pickup, right?
Indeed, Ford Motor Company will manufacture its first ever plug-in hybrid electric Ford Ranger bakkies from its Silverton factory in Pretoria. Over the next year, Ford will have spent an additional 5.2 billion rand to manufacture the hybrid electric Ranger. The investment by Ford will see it export the hybrid electric Ranger from South Africa to Europe, New Zealand, and Australia. And since 2011, Ford has spent 35 billion rand on a Silverton factory to manufacture the Ford Ranger and other vehicles. Ford has created over 5,000 direct jobs in South Africa.
And then Professor Sachs, he of course used to work at the Treasury. He says the budget will actually hurt key public services.
Yeah, Sachs is the former National Treasury Budget Office Chief. He's currently with Wits University, and he still tracks and critiques the budget. In his presentation to Parliament, Sachs has warned that the medium-term budget will impose unprecedented cuts that will damage key public services. And Sachs also says the government will fail to achieve its key objective of stabilizing debt by 2025. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana unveiled a budget last week in which the budgets of health, housing and higher education will be cut over the next 6 months. The government also plans to borrow more money to fund its service delivery needs, that is.
Ray Machlaka, thank you very much indeed. Ray back, of course, in an hour's time. More business news through the day here on SAfm.
Africa Update on SAfm Sunrise, a continental overview of current African affairs.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning.
Steve Ovo, refresh morning and Jumbo Africa to the listeners.
The US, the UK are issuing terror alerts, telling people to avoid certain places in Uganda.
Stephen, remember why they are doing that is that because today until this weekend there is Ngenge Festival. It's a cultural festival in Uganda that is being held every year. And then this also it is in the back of what has been happening in Uganda between September and last month. There have been massacres of tourists, of people who are visiting what we call the wild sites, the national parks in Uganda. Now, coming from diplomatic missions of the two foreign countries like USA and UK, Stephen, this has been the trend of them being attacked. It includes even from ours, even from our country, those who are visiting Uganda, they are also facing those challenges, becoming victims of criminals, sometimes under the guise of terrorists. So this is a warning coming from Europe to Uganda.
And then in Ethiopia, in the city of Labalela, fighting has erupted there between militia armed groups and federal forces. Wow, Ethiopia is going through the most.
Stephen, it is going through the most, despite that we know that it was during this month last year when they signed the peace agreement. Now, the Amara region, where you find one of the holy city of Lalibela in the north, this fight of the Fano militia groups, it's all about integration of this army into the federal forces that has caused tensions. And now, as you are aware, this has been a challenge even from the AU for the UN to deal with this crisis, as it was declared in August a state of emergency in the Amara region. So Ethiopia back again into a conflict, but into one of the holy sites of Lalibela, the church that was named by the UNESCO as a World Heritage Site.
And the Russian Defense Ministry, they've been talking to Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is looking for cooperation.
They are looking for that even military cooperation, Russia and Ouagadougou, because in October also Russia visited Ouagadougou to engage on what they call cooperation on operational, economic, logistical, technological, and training fields. Now, you'll understand that Traore and Vladimir Putin, they met already at the Russia-Africa summit. So this shows that how now they are moving away from the French now towards the Russians. Now the Sahel is moving towards Moscow and Kremlin for military support.
And then in Nigeria, their president, President Tinubu, he's attending the Saudi Africa Summit in Riyadh.
Riyadh, Saudis are calling Africans once more, Stephen, and Bola Tinubu attending this Saudi Africa summit, which will begin tomorrow. And what is interesting in this summit is that Nigeria is looking at these challenges of the shortage of foreign currency, the issues around their naira currency, the oil theft, the crude oil theft that has been going on, and even the issues of terrorist groupings in the northern part of their country. So this meeting, this summit that is called in Riyadh in Saudi Arabia beginning tomorrow, it means that many African leaders, Stephen, will be part of it, because we have Russia-Africa Summit, we have France-Africa Summit, now we have the Saudis, the Arabs, calling African leaders for further engagement on economics.
And then in our archives, and I remember this, the 9th of November 2008.
Stephen, it is 15 years since the passing of the cultural ambassador and the emissary, the Empress of African Song, Mama Africa, Mem Mirem Makeba, who passed at the age of 76 in the Italian town of Caserta. Very important, Stephen, that Mama Africa, Mirem Makeba, is celebrated mostly outside South Africa than in this country. A woman who appeared twice before the United Nations, 1963 as well as in 1964. Asante Sana, as we're still leading your conversation, SAfm.
Russ Advocate Sipho Mantula, thank you very much indeed. 21 minutes now to 7 o'clock.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
I've been thinking so much about the story yesterday, and we touched on it, and it's been one of the big stories of the week around the Transport Minister, Sindisiwe Chikunga, who was held up and robbed earlier in the week, and how it sort of happened, and we'll talk more about it later. And then yesterday, and this is an amazing story, a very scary story. So 4 police officers were in court. They faced charges of grievous bodily harm, right? Basically an assault case going back many years. 2 witnesses arrived outside the Randburg Magistrates Court to come and testify, and they were shot dead, right? They were shot dead outside the Randburg Magistrates Court. Now, I don't know if you've ever been there, but like many other courts and big courts, there's lots of security. Lots of it. So, how is it that people can be shot dead just outside? The NPA, the prosecutors, did what I think must have been the smart thing. They immediately went to the judge and they said, the 4 suspects in this case, we want to test them for gunpowder residue. This is astonishing. So you just think of, we put all of this together, the crime and the violence that we're seeing at the moment. I don't know if you just feel different about things. And the thing about the minister is that it's one of those moments that kind of shakes you a little bit. It can happen to anyone. I get that sense that, things are sort of kind of getting worse rather than getting better on this. And I don't know if you have a view on this on 086 000 2032. On the one side, we're told that things are getting better, that crime is slowly coming down after exploding during the start of after the pandemic. But I don't know if that's what you feel. And then, we also had that mediated conversation around how people don't go to police stations. They don't report the crime. So then how do you know what's actually happening? And I think all of this, for me, is something that we really need to look at very closely. So I don't know if you're finding, just the way you feel about that and the way you feel about your own personal safety maybe is changing quite dramatically.
I like to sell it, but want a good price for it. Where can I sell it? I'd like to sell it. I'd like to sell it. I'd like
Whoa. You want to sell your car?
Yes.
Okay.
Why do you ask?
Well, because we'd like to buy it. 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 You want to sell it? We want to buy it. We buy cars. The best way to sell your car by far.
10 of the world's greatest cricket nations are back on the pitch to argue about their next champions.
5-time global champs Australia are searching for their 6th title,
But 2-time winners, India, believe their home fans deserve the 3rd title.
while the defending champions England are more interested in back-to-back
And
victories.
Proteas are eager to reach the final.
Is it time for the new champs?
Witness the incredible game from 5 October to 19 November on S3 and SABC+.
Subscription fees do not apply. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the ICC Men's ODI Cricket World Cup, India 2023.
Hashtag the journey of the ultimate glory.
For the love of the game.
SAfm 104 to 107. Nationwide.
17 minutes to 7 the time. Well, in Joburg, you would have seen big developments over the last few days. The DA winning an application overturning the appointment of the ANC-EFF Patriotic Alliance Coalition to appoint Floyd Brink as city manager. Residents are complaining about huge problems with electricity and water. Potholes, I suppose, like in so many other places, literally everywhere in Joburg at the moment. The Ahmed Kathrada Foundation now suggesting the president should almost intervene to stop, I suppose, what they see as the damage being caused by coalition politics in Joburg. The executive director of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation is Nishan Bolton. Nishan, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen, and greetings to your listeners.
What exactly do you want to happen here?
Well, in simple terms, we want the current what we call the coalition chaos in Johannesburg to come to an end. We want some kind of stability in the leadership and governance of the city, which allows all of us to then have effective partnerships and oversight, but also to be able to get the city to do the basics right, which, as you've just mentioned in your previous clips, affects all kinds of issues, from crime to service delivery, long-term planning, but essentially is eroding the kind of citizen confidence in the city on each and every day.
So I think many people may have sympathy with you, especially on the sort of lived experience, and they may want change, but wouldn't it be undemocratic? I mean, the council was voted. People voted. They voted knowing that these people would be in office for 5 years.
No, people might well have voted, but what they voted for was not necessarily what they are now living through. Before in Johannesburg, where that kind of intervention resulted in turnaround plans that brought about the stability in the city. You've seen it in other parts of the country. So one of the options we do say that needs to be considered is dissolving the council, and that would mean then going for fresh elections. But I think preferably in the short term is acknowledging that there's a crisis, and then engaging with all of the respective role players about the options that are on the table. And all of these have to be legal options that are available at the moment.
Nishan, I mean, again, I understand the frustration, but if there were an election tomorrow, I don't know if there'll be a different outcome. I mean, there might be a different outcome, but also leading to a sort of what you see as a dysfunctional coalition.
Which is why we're not saying we want an election as the first option. But it is from the two summits that we've had, and these have been very well attended summits from people across the length and breadth of the city. These are options that have come through, because ultimately we can poke holes at any option. There needs to be firstly an acknowledgement of a crisis, and there needs to be some plan to deal with this. And whichever plan comes through is one that requires the involvement of as wide a range of civil society and community-based organizations, residents and ratepayers. And in the end, if it is found that indeed there needs to be new elections, that puts the decisions back in the hands of voters. And if they end up with the same kind of coalition chaos, then unfortunately we would have ourselves to blame. Nobody voted for a mayor that we now have. Nobody voted for the kind of city manager that is found to be, in terms of this recent court judgment, not suitable for the post. We voted for, or people would have voted for a set of ideas and a set of people, not knowing what exactly they would do when they get into office. Lastly, nobody voted for the details of the kind of coalitions that we see, and those details have never actually been made public in any event.
Nishan Bolton, thank you, Executive Director of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. You with SAfm, 12 minutes to 7. Well, while that's happening in Joburg and eThekwini, the IFP is proposing a motion of no confidence in the ANC Mayor, Mxolisi Kaunda. The chair of the IFP in the Durban Metro is Councillor Mdu Nkosi. Councillor Nkosi, good morning to you. Why do you want the mayor to be removed in eThekwini?
Good morning to you, my brother, and to all your listeners. Well, it's an open book that eThekwini, the issues of service delivery has gone out of hand. And we as political parties voted by the people, we are ears, mouth, and also eyes of the people. No one can deny that there is no service delivery in eThekwini. Ratepayers are complaining all over, business people. Just ordinary person on the street is complaining. Well, you heard that just recently 1.2 billion have been taken back. It was 1.9 actually billion taken back by the Treasurer General, of which 720.9 million only that one has been approved. Now that tells you that there is poor planning. Now the mayor is a supervisor of the city manager. If he's failing to do his job to supervise city manager, so then city manager will deal with his or her staff in eThekwini. Hello?
Yes, we're still with you.
If he's failing to deal with his staff, then that is why we are saying the mayor has failed people of eThekwini. You know, Section 5.4 of the MFMA is stated very clear that the responsibility is, of which we all believe that he has failed to do that. Therefore, as I feel, we cannot fold our hands and see things going wrong in eThekwini. We have a statutory mandate. Section 5.4 talks about budget control and also identification of financial problem. The mayor failed to do that because we shouldn't land it in that situation if he have done his job. The issues of service delivery, you have found people does not have water, does not have electricity, weeks, days, sewer floating all over the city.
So, Councillor Nkosi, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you removed Kaunda, the ANC is still the biggest party in eThekwini. I mean, can you really see an administration in eThekwini that's not led by the ANC? So wouldn't it just be a person from the same party? You could remove the person, but the politics would stay the same.
Well, what is important is that all political parties, opposition parties in eThekwini must come together. I don't expect a political party that is working for people to assist eThekwini ANC to continue running the city. If all political parties in eThekwini, we can vote together to remove the ANC in power, then we do believe that there will be a change in eThekwini, because we at least 5%, 10% of the change. People who are paying rates can be happy because at the moment there is nothing that encourages ratepayers to pay.
Councillor Mdu Nkosi, thank you. The chair of the IFP in the Durban Metro, eThekwini, really. I don't know if you've got views on this. I mean, the idea of some sort of intervention in Joburg, would changing the mayor in eThekwini make a difference there? 086 000 2032.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very heavy on your way to the airport this morning at Joburg using the R24, the Albertina Sisulu Freeway. It's a big truck crash. 3 lanes are closed going east between the Edenvale exit and Barber Road. Traffic's parked all the way back through to the N12 highway split. What we've been saying is get through Galilee, stay the N12 to Boksburg. It is clear. And then a cut back on the R21 North. Go up into the airport via Jet Park. It's a little bit further to travel, but you'll get to the airport quicker than anybody stuck on the R24. That's a given. The N3 going north is heavy, as well as a crash just by London Road. So passing Edenvale, that all gets a bit heavy. A crash just after Rivonia Road, N1 North. So coming through from Randburg, that's very slow up through Four Ways and on into that Sunning Hill area. The N1 in Pretoria continues to grow, as we have been warning, heading towards the R21 split. The back of the queue is now around Atterbury Road. When we next touch base, that'll be back through to Linwood and then back to the N4. So go early is the call there these days. Durban, it looks like some additional lane restrictions are in on the N2 South at Spaghetti Junction through that work zone. That's a heavy backlog already from Inunda Road. The N2 North already sitting from the M7 up through Spaghetti Junction. And there's also some roadworks at Paradise Valley. So if you're coming along the N3 or you're on the M13 out of Pinetown, both of those highways at Paradise Valley join up and then run slowly into the work section. Cape Town, very busy out of Tableview. Of course, the roadworks on Bloberg Road still there, and that's backing everything up on the alternative routes as well as motorists look to get through. Bayside Junction getting pretty busy. And Cape Town, a crash on the N2 inbound at Bunga Avenue is slowing traffic coming through from the airport. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Feel safe this holiday season. Secure your home with Trelidor. Call 0861 Trelidor now and get a quote within 24 hours. Our security experts are on standby at over 50 franchises across South Africa. So call today or visit trelidor.co.za. Trelidor, the ultimate crime barrier.
One of the most violently gifted lightweights to have traded leather in the hexagon returns on the 9th of November to take on Africa's fastest rising 155-pound star of combat sports, as Cole the Hitman Henning faces Humphrey King Cobra Malinga in the main event of the biggest card in recent African mixed martial arts history. EFC 109 this Thursday. Watch it on SABC Sport Channel and DTT Channel 4 from 7 p.m. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag SAFM Sunrise.
6 minutes to 7. Good morning. You know, so often we talk about cases of police brutality. Police officers seem to be able to get away with hurting people, often killing people, in fact, and no action is taken. In Randburg yesterday, as I was telling you earlier, 2 witnesses who are about to testify in a case against 4 police officers accused of aggravated assault were shot dead. I mean, right outside the Randburg Magistrates Court. The NPA then won an order to have the suspects in that case tested for gunpowder residue. Daniel Knutzer is the editor of Viewfinder. It's a website, but he's been investigating police brutality for years, also looking at the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, and in fact, he won what's called the Global Shining Light Award just earlier this year. Daniel, good morning. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much, Stephen, and good morning to the listeners.
We see so many cases of police brutality, and people will tell us the police did this to me, they did this to, my father, they did this to my son. Why does it keep happening? It seems to be a sort of endless repetition.
Well, you're quite right, Stephen, and that's not just intuition. It's backed up by the statistics of the IPID, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate, the police watchdog. IPID takes in 5, 6, sometimes up to 7,000 cases of police criminality, of which the vast majority are related to the misuse of force and the use of violence by police officers unlawfully. Stephen, it's a complex issue, but we've really boiled it down we've boiled the issue down to 2 drivers. I might just add, the brutality, it's not just that it's there, it is that it is accompanied by pervasive non-accountability. It seems that the watchdog and working with police disciplinary structures are completely incapable of ensuring that these cases go from complaint to a guilty finding and an appropriate sanction if there is prima facie evidence in the vast majority, almost all of these cases, right? We've identified 2 fundamental drivers that we're elevating this week in light of the IPID Amendment Act being deliberated in Parliament at the moment. One is that IPID, the watchdog, is completely overwhelmed. I mentioned earlier that they take in between 5,000 and 6,000 cases a year. But in the most recent financial year, when their backlog and the cases that they are monitoring and performing court duties on and administrative duties on disciplinary processes, when you take the entire workload of the IPID, the 189 investigators that are there in the 2022-3 financial year, it's actually more than 46,000 cases. And that is just a deluge and an overwhelming amount for this under-resourced agency to be dealing with. What happens, of course, then is that many cases, sometimes complex and serious cases that require deep investigative capacity, get neglected and never see the light of day. They gather dust. The second issue is that police management is very reluctant to both proactively enforce discipline and high standards, but also to enact and initiate disciplinary proceedings on the basis of the few cases where IPID does make recommendations on the basis of solid evidence that somebody should be held accountable.
Is there a problem with police leadership? I mean, Daniel, we've had this problem for years. I mean, you could argue it actually goes back long before 1994, and in fact, I'm sure it does. But sometimes a minister or a commissioner will make a promise: the police will be better, promise accountability, there'll be cameras, lights, action, but nothing seems to happen after that.
Certainly, and I think that is also a fundamental point that we've made, is that even though we are suggesting amendments to the legislation which might tighten up some of the controls, strengthen IPID, and enforce upon the police its duty to ensure high standards and discipline, you can only do so much with tinkering with regulations and laws. There needs to be a fundamental culture shift, and that needs to come, of course, from the managerial class and from the leadership, the top leadership of the police, the minister and the commissioner. And unfortunately, I think that is where we've seen a serious lack. I mean, we hear anecdotally from police officers, from IPID investigators, the kind of messages and the kind of rhetoric and language that is permeating the police service. And it is one, admittedly, of being hard and tough on crime, but in that messaging, so often a tacit approval and support of brutality is couched. And I think that is a serious, that is something that you cannot fix by the law, try as we might in terms of our best intentions with this IPID Act amendment bill before Parliament.
So much to look at here, and this has such a big impact on people's daily lives. Daniel Knutzer, thank you, editor at Viewfinder, won that Global Shining Light Award as well in September. But I mean, the issues around police just continue and continue. And so do the issues, unfortunately, around violent crime. Well, we'll continue conversations. We're going to talk about the strange wave of children falling ill after eating food and snacks generally at spaza shops. What I don't get is the food that they're eating, it's biscuits and snacks. It's not meat or eggs or, cheese or something that can, is generally seen as dangerous. So there's something strange going on here. We'll talk about the best way to approach that. We'll talk as well about licensed discs. My views on licensed discs. I realize I'm probably in a minority of one, but I just don't quite, I like to ask questions about the point of them. You with SAfm, leading the conversation. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock. Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 38462. Now that's good news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAfm News.
In our top stories, Ramaphosa urges active citizenry to assist in curbing corruption, and thousands of Palestinians flee Gaza City. Good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa says democracy in South Africa will be derailed if efforts to deal with fraud and corruption fail. The president was delivering the keynote address at the two-day national dialogue of the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council at Boksburg, east of Johannesburg.
If corruption is not curbed, arrested or stopped, the greatest damage will not be in the funds that are stolen or the jobs that are lost. It will be in damaging our democracy. It will be in making our people have less confidence and have less trust in our democracy.
Transnet says its problems do not stem from a shortage of clientele. The company is facing a financial crisis and has asked government for support. Briefing the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises on the entity's finances, Board Chairperson Andile Sangu says financial challenges facing the company can be fixed easily if the requirements of customers can be addressed effectively.
The company does not have a demand problem. You know, many businesses will spend a lot of money trying to get customers, pay money on marketing and business development so that you can get clients, so that you can service, and then be able then to generate money because you're out there getting clients. Transnet does not have that.
Saving. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out. Is your cash flow tighter than bumper-to-bumper traffic on the N1? Navigate the financial gridlock by asking Outsurance to save you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask them to pay you 500 Rand cash. That's monthly savings or 500 Rand cash. If they can't, beat your premium. claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years, ask for R1,500 instead. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. That's out to 38462. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSB. T's and C's apply.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm sports headlines, it's cricket. The Proteas bowling coach Eric Simons is looking ahead to the team taking on Afghanistan tomorrow. And in soccer action, Kaizer Chiefs have a morale-boosting win. That's ahead of the derby this weekend. All this and more just before 7:30.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a busy Thursday for Joburg motorists. Here's the ones to try and avoid, or make sure you've got plenty of time to get through. Big truck crash on the R24 between the Edenvale exit and Barber Road. That's a heavy queue for those who need to get through towards the airport. It's on the airport-bound carriageway. Also crash on the N3 just before you get to the London Road exit at Alex. That's a delay effectively from Germiston through to Van Buren, and then Galulis through towards the Alex crash in. Also, top of town, you've got a collision on the N1 North at Ravonia. 2 lanes are closed there. That's a big backlog extending back to Bayers Nordia, deep into Randburg territory on your way slowly to Sunning Hill. The N1 South now backlogging from Linwood Road in Pretoria down towards the R21 restrictions. Durban, even heavier than normal on the N2 through Spaghetti Junction or towards Spaghetti Junction with the big roadworks going on. The N2 North from the M7, but it's the N2 South coming down. It's almost back to as far as the Queen Nundy Drive territory. Also break that into North before Gateway, causing some extra delays if you're airport bound that side. And Cape Town this morning, Marine Drive backing heavily from Sunningdale all the way through towards the Sunset Beach area. It's heavy coming off the West Coast Road onto Marine Drive. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
SAfm Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
8 after 7, good morning, you're with SAfm Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. There's been these strange sort of cases, we did a mediated conversation about it, around children who buy something at a spaza shop and then fall ill, and I just can't get to the bottom of it. I'm sure you can't. And we've seen it, I mean, there have been cases in Rustenburg, in the Northern Cape, we've seen them in Cape Town, we've seen them in so many places, and it makes no sense that they'll be all over the place, and it's children eating snacks, right? We'll try and sort of work out how at least we should approach the investigation. We'll talk about that in a moment. The astonishing story in Mpumalanga of how in just 3 days, through 2 driver's license or licensing centres, 35 million rands worth of revenue from drivers, from car license discs, vehicle license discs, disappeared. How can that happen? We'll talk about that as well. I think it's interesting, how something like that can happen. And just to the whole issue of licenses, and then the NHI going through the National Council of Provinces, and medical aids, being sort of tightened, the medical aid tax creditors being removed, things like that. We'll talk about that as well. Don't forget, something to look forward to from 8:30, 5 weeks from now. All you'll be thinking about is your end-of-year holiday. We'll take a little holiday of our own from 8:30. Good morning.
No matter how much you plan, sometimes life happens. And when life happens, there's Cash Converters Cash Advance Loan. Our 30-day cash advance loan allows you to take care of those unexpected surprises. Simply bring in your items such as jewelry, tech and more. We'll keep it safe and you'll walk out with some much-needed cash. Plus, stand a chance to win 20,000 Rand every week. So, visit a Cash Converters store today. T's and C's apply. Cash Converters, we buy, we sell, we loan cash.
10 of the world's greatest cricket nations are back on the pitch to argue about the next champions.
5-time global champs Australia are searching for their 6th title.
But 2-time winners, India, believe their home fans deserve the 3rd title.
While the defending champions England are more interested in back-to-back victories.
And Proteas are eager to reach the final.
Is it time for the new champs?
Witness the incredible game from 5 October to 19 November on S3 and SABC+.
Subscription fees do not apply. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the ICC Men's ODI Cricket World Cup, India 2023.
Hashtag the journey of the ultimate glory.
For the love of the game.
Big stories of the day. Hashtag SAfm Sunrise.
11 after 7, good morning. Well, over the last few weeks, there's been this large number of cases involving children who say they've been feeling ill after eating things they bought at a spaza shop. And we've seen cases, I think, in almost every province. In Grootes, in the Eastern Cape, 60 learners received treatment. In Gauteng, there's been case after case of this. In Northwest, in Rustenburg, in the Northern Cape, other places too. And there's no certainty as to why this is happening, why so many children are falling ill. In the meantime, some political leaders, other people have said they need to conduct inspections of spaza shops. And also just to point out, the children, from what I understand, are eating snacks, biscuits, not meat or dairy products, which would generally be seen as more dangerous. So where do we start with this? Professor Alex van den Heever is a professor of social security systems at Wits University. Professor van den Heever, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
People are getting very worried about this. How do we sort of be methodical in trying to find out what's happening? Because it's happening in so many different places.
Well, it's very odd, and I think what's of greater concern is that there is actually no official report that provides evidence on what the children have been poisoned with, so to speak, and what the cause would be. But what we see is a very quick reaction to attack foreign-owned spaza shops. And that kind of leap from no evidence is to me a concern. And I don't understand why that would be the immediate reaction in the absence of any kind of technical report on what's going on. And yet we have the capacity to do these analyses. So where are they, and why aren't they in the public domain?
We've spoken to the National Health Department about this and their sort of food inspectorate. And they obviously say we need to wait for the toxicology results. And as far as I know, none of those toxicology results have been released. I mean, some of them may have, and I missed it. But isn't that the most important thing? We need to be able to compare cases and see what happened.
So how long does it take for such a report to come out? You see, that's one of the problems. And what we have is an immediate response that says this is foreign-owned spaza shops that are causing this. And so there is this, it feeds into this xenophobic attack, which I'm afraid tends to be something that comes around close to elections when foreigners are attacked in South Africa. And I think that this is problematic. We had the building that burns down in the CBD of Johannesburg, and immediately the problem is NGOs. And we have legislation coming forward to attack NGOs. So to me, the issue is government itself doesn't wait for actual official evidence before it leaps to a conclusion and then starts to demonize a group of vulnerable people.
There's a big issue of food being sold, informally on the side of the road. It's a huge economy. We learned during the pandemic that, in fact, one of the reasons people had to spend more money on food was because while they could get food from supermarkets, they couldn't get food from spaza shops. And the price of vegetables went up for them during that time. It's also a form of income for hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people, in fact. So it keeps economies going. It distributes food. The cause for more regulation. I mean, I'm not sure how that regulation would work or if it would be helpful.
Well, I'm not sure that the regulation is going to be applied in a sort of a consistent manner. So the spaza shops that we see have been there for many, many years. Selling food in this sort of informal setting is not something new. It's not something that just happened in the last 3 months that causes food poisoning. It's been there forever. And in much of Africa, you've got cities where you have streets and streets and streets of people selling food in informal arrangements without this kind of concern being raised. So I think that the issue of protecting people's health shouldn't be used as a smokescreen for other reasons. The issue of protecting people in these from expired food, so to speak, suddenly it needs a proper systemic approach if there is a real problem.
Professor Alex van den Heever, thank you, Professor of Social Security Systems at Wits University. Well, we'll wait to see what comes from those toxicology reports. 7:15.
Agenda-setting conversations of the day.
In Mpumalanga, officials say vehicle license disc fraud saw the provincial government losing 35 million rand through 2 traffic license centres. They say in just 3 days. In other words, 35 million rand went missing incredibly quickly. Vusi Shongwe is the MEC in Mpumalanga for Community Safety, Security and Liaison. MEC, good morning.
Good morning, Grootes, and good morning to your listeners.
Did this really happen in just 3 days?
Yeah, it happened between the 6th and the 9th of October, where we, through our vine grapes, were able to understand that there are officials who are involved in corrupt activities, swindling the government of the licenses money, instead of it going to the government, but going to them and the individual vehicle owners about hundreds of them.
How does that happen? I mean, I don't understand. Are people paying cash? Surely it wasn't 35 million rand in cash. I mean, you wouldn't be able to walk out of a centre with that. So then, I mean, you must be able to trace it electronically.
Yeah, it is. It is electronically, but officials, you know yourself, Grootes, that any person who's working with something become an expert in that particular field, and they are able to swindle the government. Hence, we have discovered that we have lost such a big amount of money, and we are working tirelessly together with all the security agencies in making sure that we recover that money.
Were most of the licenses for heavy trucks, trucks that go through Mpumalanga and sometimes go to other countries, or were most of them cars?
Precisely, Grootes. That is exactly what yourself as a presenter can be able to talk about it, so that in all the provinces and across the neighboring countries, trucks that you see, all of them are registered under Mpumalanga. Then you must ask yourself why. What is the interest in Mpumalanga? So that is the syndicate that we are following up, and we are going to make sure that they are arrested and the money for government is recovered.
So, I mean, surely there are checks in place to make sure that the money moves properly, even in these centres. And I mean, so often, someone will go to a centre and you go through the entire process and you only pay right at the end. And the reason that is, and it's all through one sort of office, is so that you can tightly control it. So then it's pretty obvious where you need to start your investigation. It goes through that one office.
Precisely. We are not working alone as the Department of Safety and Security in Mpumalanga. We are working with RTMC. You will know that RTMC has experts. There are certain experts, expert people there that can be able to help us to trace those particular transactions through electronic devices and everything. That will also bring your Hawks as well as your SIU and all security agencies that have a knowledge in tracing that particular scam.
So for normal cars, you can go to the Road Traffic Management Corporation and you can actually get your driver's license there. For Mpumalanga, can you go online to that same website and get a truck license? And what I'm saying is, do you not want to encourage people to do that rather than go to your driver's license centres, because that should reduce the corruption?
That is exactly what we are trying to do after this bad experience. We are trying to bring in a biometric system that will be able to avoid using cash or exchanging cash between two and few officials and the entire syndicate. It can't be only in Mpumalanga, Grootes. It tells you that even people from other provinces are working together with these officials. That is what we are hunting. That is what we are tracing. That is what we want to find out and make sure that we nip. You'll remember that from 2020, we've already arrested 20 of some officials in the department that are defrauding the government.
Vusi Shongwe, MEC, thank you very much indeed. The MEC in Mpumalanga for Community Safety, Security and Liaison. 35 million rand through 2 centres in just 3 days. It's amazing. 20 minutes after 7.
No matter how much you plan, sometimes life happens. And when life happens, there's Cash Converters Cash Advance Loan. Our 30-day cash advance loan allows you to take care of those unexpected surprises. Simply bring in your items such as jewelry, tech and more. We'll keep it safe and you'll walk out with some much-needed cash. Plus, stand a chance to win 20,000 Rand every week. So, visit a Cash Converters store today. T's and C's apply. Cash Converters, we buy, we sell, we loan cash.
It's about a little more than just an X on that ballot paper. It's about SAfGov knowing what I want, where I'm going, and who I want to take with on this journey. To me, it's not just a vote. It's my democracy. I own it. So show up and register for what you stand for. From Giyani to Umlazi, Pitori to Matatiele. Bring your green bar-coded ID, smart card or temporary ID certificate. Stations open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. 18 to 19 November 2023. Or register online by going to elections.org.za or call 0800 11 8000. It's your democracy. Own it. Brought to you by the IEC.
The Kosi Nation says, Ikosi alphela umoya, but the Bucks are confident that yonke indawo ibhakabhaka liyaphumelela. Who are the real kings of Soweto? Gold and black or black and white? Uhamba nobani? Amakhosi or Amabhakania? This is the DSTV Premiership, the Soweto Derby. Kaizer Chiefs versus Orlando Pirates on Saturday, 11 November at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
First in the morning, SAfm Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
22 after 7. Good morning. Well, in Parliament, the National Council of Provinces is still considering the NHI bill, which would see everyone being able to be treated at every hospital rather than the system we have now with government hospitals and private hospitals. But government also going through the process of removing the medical aid tax credit, as I understand it, which means people who have medical aids won't be able to write off the contributions they make to medical aids in their tax return. And all of this leads to questions about the role of medical aids in the future. Dr. Katlego Motudi is the Managing Director of the Board of Healthcare Funders. I suppose you would say he represents medical aid, sort of. Dr. Motudi, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
Obviously, government wants your role to be reduced. I mean, it certainly looks like that to me. We see huge political pressure from government to introduce the NHI. From as things stand at the moment, do you think there's still going to be a big role for medical aids in the future, or is it going to be reduced dramatically?
Yeah, the bill is intentional about the role of schemes. It does say in certain sections that once the NHI is fully implemented, schemes will be reduced to providing what they call complementary cover. We don't quite know how that is defined because we're not sure of what the benefits would be provided. But from our assessment, the role of medical schemes will be greatly reduced.
Do you believe you've been treated unfairly by government here, or the people on medical schemes, are they being treated unfairly?
From our legal analysis, I think the steps taken to exclude schemes, there are many pundits who believe that it actually is unconstitutional more than being unfair. The reason is that you would actually be reducing access, and this is based on that currently schemes are providing additional access to healthcare services to about 9 million people. If you remove schemes from participating in the NHI environment, it means that all these people must now seek healthcare services from the private sector. We know that the private sector is already overburdened. So by extension, you are actually reducing access not just to people who are on medical schemes, but also to the general population, because everybody must now feed from the same trough with already strained services from infrastructural perspective, medicines, as well as the health workforce that is involved. So it can be deemed to be that in that way.
I mean, sure. I mean, the other way of looking at it, and Dr. Motudi, you'll know all of these arguments that go in many directions, is at the moment the poor are excluded, and why should the rich get better health care than the poor? And I'm sure that's an argument that you have a counter for.
Yeah, so we are aware that government does not have unlimited resources, and even Section 27 of the Constitution says that there will be access to healthcare service to the extent that it's affordable to the government. Now, medical aid schemes are already participating in the healthcare system. Secondly, there's been other interventions by the private sector to assist government to help those people who cannot afford medical aid cover through interventions like the low-cost benefit options or primary care covers. It is in our estimation that an additional 10 to maybe even 20 million people could be taken under the wing of these services. So it's not a matter of being elitist. Firstly, those very people who are paying for medical schemes do pay taxes, and the majority of the taxes actually come from those people to actually support government to provide healthcare services. So we see it more as a partnership. We don't think that government should reduce the pool to a single fund that is under his control, we can still regulate it under a multi-funder purpose. And I think we saw that example during COVID, where you could not see a difference between the various sectors. It did not matter who was paying for the healthcare, but you got the same service.
There's another thing that's happening at the moment, Dr. Mutudi, I'm sure you're aware, around the Road Accident Fund. And the Road Accident Fund for decades would reimburse medical aids when medical aids paid for the treatment of people in road accidents. Now the CEO of the Road Accident Fund, Collins Letswalo, is refusing to do that. And in fact, the interpretation I think most people see of the latest Constitutional Court ruling is that the Road Accident Fund must continue that practice of reimbursing medical aids. But he has refused to do that. Discovery is taking him back to court. They say he's guilty of contempt of court. How do you see this? Should the Road Accident Fund be reimbursing medical aids?
It's the same argument that we've just had, that those people who are on medical aid are part of the general population. They also pay fuel levies. Now, if you are going to exclude them on the notion that they already have cover, you are actually biased, or actually they are prejudiced. So we are actually aligned with the ruling of the courts to say that they should continue cover. In fact, we have submitted to the proposed amendments that there shouldn't be an exclusion of certain sectors of population. Everybody else who has been enjoying coverage should continue. The fact that you have a medical aid does not mean that you are not part of the population or contributing to the other monetary requirements to support the Road Accident Fund.
Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Katlego Mutudi is the Managing Director of the Board of Healthcare Funders. 28 after 7.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Everyone talking cricket at the moment. Eric Simons.
Yes, he's saying that they're not getting bogged down by that one loss against India. And it was Marco Jansen conceding 94 runs in 9.4 overs. Now, before facing the Indians, Jansen has been a pillar of strength for Themba Bavuma's team. Besides being the second highest wicket taker, he was also the most successful bowler in the first power play, taking 12 wickets in that period. Let's go to the Proteas bowling coach, Eric Simons.
I don't think we're going to get carried away with changes due to a frustration of one particular power play. We've been outstanding in the power play, so I think the role he plays is a good one, and one that's settled in quite nicely. We've spoke from the very start of having a bowling unit that understood their roles, and they've settled into those roles. So we don't want to overanalyze one performance which we weren't as happy with as we have been.
Before the knockout match against Australia, the Proteas will take on Afghanistan in Ahmedabad tomorrow. Soccer action, Kaizer Chiefs will head to the Soweto derby with their tails up. They beat Cape Town Spurs 3-2 at an empty FNB stadium last night. Morocco Swallows edged out TS Galaxy 1-0, and that match was played at Dobsonville Stadium. Supersport United missing out on the chance to go top of the table. They were held to a 1-1 draw by Polokwane City at the old Peter Mokaba Stadium. Elsewhere, the Celtic manager Brendan Rodgers has likened modern football to a computer game after claiming that Dazen Maida was sent off following a needless VAR intervention in his side's 6-0 defeat by Atletico Madrid.
And when you watch it, it's a really, really soft red card. Now, for a team like ourselves, coming to here, 11v11, we would have to be at our real max to be looking to get something out of the game. Once it goes so early to 10 versus 11 becomes a real challenge for us, and obviously as the game goes on we tire, and of course they were scoring from all angles and scored some fantastic goals, but I think the red card makes it really, really difficult for us.
We'll have a wrap of your sport with headlines top of the hour for SAfm. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thank you. Good morning. In the next half hour, we'll be talking to the CEO of Rand Water, get an update on the problems they've been having there. Also, they seem to have done quite well financially, so we'll find out more about that. They've had a good rating from Fitch's. That's to come. You with SAfm leading the conversation. No load shedding now. Stage 2 later. It's 7:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, hundreds of workers at Gold One mine east of Johannesburg have downed tools, The striking workers are demanding the employer expedite the balloting process for the new majority union. President Cyril Ramaphosa says democracy in South Africa will be derailed if efforts to deal with fraud and corruption fail. The president was delivering the keynote address on the two-day national dialogue of the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council at Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. And Transnet says its problems do not stem from a shortage of clientele. The company is facing a financial crisis and has asked government for support. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still queuing heavily out towards the airport at Joburg. It's that truck crash before you get to the Edenvale off-ramp, and traffic remains heavy from the N12 highway split. So we've been saying take the N12 down to Boksburg, the R21 up through Jet Park, and just keep yourself moving towards the airport and your flight connections. If that is your trip this morning, if you're just heading out to Kempton Park, you might want to do that as well. The N1, the other side of town, under a bit of pressure. There's queues just through Bayers Nordia. And then from Malabongwe, it stays heavy all the way around to about the main road bridge, just past the Willie Mandela exit into four ways. An earlier crash at Ravoni is being clear, but there's those two queues of traffic between Randburg and Sunninghill this morning. The M1 south of Pretoria now backed up to almost the N4, Emelafladi Highway. When we next cross, it'll be back there, certainly. It's very heavy all the way to the R21. Eskian Pathali, following big queues yesterday at Pretoria CBD, is again this morning, queuing from the Mobopani Highway. Some days you get through okay, but most days you don't. Durban, now there's some roadworks on the M13 and N3 routes at Paradise Valley, so coming through Pinetown, both of those routes are busy this morning. The N2 going north is a breakdown before Gateway, so through Komashu that stays a bit busy, and a bit of traffic through Kloof onto the M13, moving slowly down the Fields Hill area. Cape Town, no major incidents. The highways are just busy, but nothing really blocking them other than traffic. Marine Drive, West Coast Road, that's heavy again. That's a problem coming from Sunningdale all the way through to about the first set of traffic lights at Sunset Beach before that eases up. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
The business update on SAfm.
Ray Machlaka, good morning. Asian markets, US markets, how are they looking?
Well, it is Asian markets that are mostly up. Investors are positively reacting to news that inflation in China fell by 0.2% in October. China is one of the few countries in the world where consumer and producer inflation is falling, and there is no pressure for China's central bank to increase interest rates. So in Asian markets, Japan's Nikkei is up 1.3%, China's Shanghai Composite is up 0.1%, and Hong Kong's Hang Seng is down 0.3%. In US markets, the Nasdaq, Dow Jones, and S&P futures are each down 0.1%, and our market, the JSE, was up 1.3% yesterday. For a third day in a row, the shares of mining companies were mostly up.
And then the SIUs blocked the pension funds of two Transnet executives. They're implicated in the straw tender.
Yeah, the two former Transnet workers are accused by the SIU and Transnet of inflating the price of breathalyzer straws by a staggering 10,000%. The former Transnet workers are Lerato Mary Teresa Magende and Landela Hawkins Madubane. A breathalyzer straw normally goes for 29 cents. However, the former Transnet workers allegedly colluded with three suppliers to pay nearly 30 Rand for each straw. The tender for breathalyzer straws should have cost Transnet 300,000 Rand, but Transnet eventually paid 34 million Rand. Transnet and the SIU have now won a court order blocking pension payouts to the two former workers.
And then ShopRite, now competing with Dis-Chem in telemedicine.
Yeah, pharmacy chains are now offering a service that allows consumers to book virtual telephone or video consultations with doctors from their homes. Dis-Chem is already offering this telemedicine service. However, ShopRite is the latest retailer to offer the service through its pharmacy chain business called MediRite to launch the telemedicine service. ShopRite's MediRite business is partnering with a provider of clinics and virtual consultants, and that business is called Healthcare Clinics.
Ray Machlaka, thank you very much indeed. Ray, of course, back tomorrow. More business news through the day here on SAfm.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
All right, we've been talking about corruption this morning. You heard the president. He was talking about it yesterday, seeped into every aspect of governance, he said. I made the point that, Kgalema Motlanthe said something very similar back in 2007. The rotters across the board is what he said. The Chief Justice, Raymond Zondo, talking about what he sort of said was Gupta Zuma state capture. We've been talking about driver's license discs as well this morning. The situation, of course, in the Middle East, conversations around UCT. Did you see the Supreme Court of Appeal ruled yesterday that prisoners should be allowed to use laptops without modems to study in their cells? And one of the reasons is they say that it is so obvious that people have cell phones in prisons anyway when they're not supposed to. I've never understood why we don't just put cell phone jammers around prisons. That seemed to me to be the obvious thing to do. Rudzani and Davidson, hi. You want to talk Orlando Pirates?
Morning, how are you?
I'm well, Rudzani. Go for it.
Yes, I want to talk about Orlando Pirates. Hello?
Yes, what about them, Rudzani?
Yes, beginning of the season, Orlando Pirates was doing well. Then they're winning cup also. Then after M108, the old man, Stanley Chawara, starting to interfering the coach. Now the coach is not taking, you don't have power on the Orlando Pirates to replace the players. He give him instruction, he must put this one, take this one. So Pirates start losing game. Now we're going to face the derby or Kaizer Chiefs. So if we lose on that game, the coach must not go. The person who should go is Stanley Skrimachala, not the coach.
Isn't it? I mean, we seem to have lost Rudzani there. All right, sorry about that. Rudzani disappearing, unfortunately. I mean, I know that different in different places you do different things. Sometimes in here, does the coach have the power? What about in British football, English football? So there are different views on all of these things, as you know. Voice notes coming through this morning on many different issues on 0614 104 107.
SG, good morning to you. Good morning to your team. Good morning to all our listeners. Uncle JJ, the truck driver. Yesterday, Mr. President was opening anti-corruption what? To fight for corruption. 3 days time, 35 million gone. That's why I said corruption, that meeting, it was a waste of time. Because corruption is their daily bread.
All right, Uncle JJ, the truck driver, thank you. Other voice notes?
Stephen, I love South Africa. First we blamed apartheid for all our problems. Then along came COVID, so we blamed COVID for all our problems. Now we blame state capture for our problems. But all I know, I didn't join the struggle to be poor. Mike East London.
All right, Mike, very frustrated there. I know there's a lot of frustration at the moment. Look at the state that we're in, and you can understand why. I think people very sort of, upset and concerned and not sure of the future. And this goes back to what the president said yesterday about, one of the greatest dangers about corruption is the damage it does to our belief in democracy. Takolo, hi, good morning.
How's it done?
All right, man, you're on the line from Harrismith. You want to talk corruption?
Yeah, no. You know what? We are sick and tired now with this corruption thing because they're always talking about corruption, but we can't see people who are in that corruption. Why can't these people get arrested? Because now, if the president saying they must have this thing, what is that? I don't know what they call it. But it's disgusting. We must get those people who are committing the corruption. Who are those people? Because now we don't know them, but they was people who are in corruption.
Yeah.
They must get arrested so that we can see that they are working on corruption. But they're always talking about corruption, but we don't see any result out of that. Even the Zondo Commission. It was there, but we don't see the results. What the use? They're always talking about the corruption, but we don't see those people. Want to see those people and bring those that money back.
Yeah.
That's all that we need.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Caller,
Always talking about corruption, but we don't see any results. How long now?
I mean,
it's been long now.
I think the thing is that we're all getting frustrated, aren't we? And the longer we go without these cases, the more frustrated we're going to be. And that's the issue, is that, it's about getting people in court. Let's start the trials. Let's get going.
That's all we need, so that you can see these people, they are working on this corruption. But they're always talking corruption, but we can't see the result.
Yeah. All right. Sokolo and Harry Smith, thanks very much indeed. I hear your frustration. I think many people agree with you. Andre in Northwest, hi, good morning. The issue of spaza shops, go for it.
Good morning, Stephen. 2 years ago, the Northwest Chamber of Commerce and the Northwest University Business School did a research project on spaza shops. And we found that 84.9% of all spaza shops in the Northwest province belongs to foreigners. Now, if I say foreigners, I'm not talking about Zimbabweans, please. I'm talking about Pakistani, Bangladesh. 48% belongs to Pakistanis. There are an estimate 650,000 spaza shops belonging to Pakistanis in South Africa. But that's not the problem. They manufacture their own goods. If you go to Paris, a little town like Paris, they've got a distribution center there as big as a school hall. And that is the problem. It is not the products they sell that are the sell-by date is gone. It's the stuff they manufacture. They manufacture it all over the show. In Joburg, Ventersdorp. It's a circus out there. And we've warned the president at the meeting in Potchefstroom. He came to see us. We said to him, sir, you need to do something about this. This is a ticking time bomb.
Yeah.
But the research was also done in 2010. And already then, they were warned about this. So that is the problem with these spaza shops.
Andre in Northwest, thank you. I mean, it's the one explanation that seems to make sense, that the goods are being manufactured and distributed across the country, and that's why you have all of this spread. The other question I don't get is why this is happening just to children. 086 000 2032.
No matter how much you plan, sometimes life happens. And when life happens, there's Cash Converters Cash Advance Loan. Our 30-day cash advance loan allows you to take care of those unexpected surprises. Simply bring in your items such as jewelry, tech and more. We'll keep it safe and you'll walk out with some much-needed cash. Plus, stand a chance to win 20,000 Rand every week. So, visit a Cash Converters store today. T's and C's apply. Cash Converters, we buy, we sell, we loan cash.
Borussia Mönchengladbach knows that only a win will make their plan to get to the top half a success. But VfL Wolfsburg's game plan is to grab victory away from home to cement their top half position. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the exciting clash between Borussia Mönchengladbach and VfL Wolfsburg this Friday, 10 November at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAfm, let's talk.
Well, let's see if we can find out a little bit more and get a better understanding around what could have happened when the Transport Minister, Sindisiwe Chikunga, and members of a VIP protection unit were themselves held up and robbed of their belongings, including guns. They were on the N3 between Vosloorus and Heidelberg. And, so many people have strong views on this story. And I think that's partly because everyone's so frustrated with crime at the moment. Mqalisi Sledge Slavana is an independent security specialist. Mqalisi, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen.
So what we know is that...
And thank you for inviting me.
Of course. I mean, what we know is that the car's tyres were punctured by spikes, which means this is deliberate. And we've seen criminal gangs do this before. They puncture people's tyres, the car has to stop, and then they rob the people in the car. Is there a particular protocol or something like that VIP guards would follow? I mean, I realize that, and we spoke to someone yesterday, said anyone can be taken by surprise. That happens. But is there a sort of protocol that these guards should be following?
Yes, of course. Firstly, Stevie, let me say it is so sad that our citizen will fall prey to these hyenas, which is criminals. It is an unfortunate incident that I wouldn't wish for any person to be confronted by. But let me assure the citizens that we still have good and capable, well-oiled machines of protectors out there. Let us not lose hope. Otherwise, by so doing, we will be giving clear operating platforms for these criminals, right? The car has been spiked and it came to a standstill. And it was apparently at night or towards early hours of the morning. Let's say it was at night. The damage that the spikes caused, apparently, you cannot drive any further. So once they stopped, once they stopped, they should have been immediately be aware of their surroundings because they are in a vulnerable area. We've been receiving all these tips, all these from the social media, all these trends of the spikes. So they should have been also much more alert than anyone else because the area where they were, where the incident took place, was such a vulnerable area. It's been riddled with different crimes. So I would think that because they couldn't do anything, because once the tire got spiked by these things, you cannot drive any further. They should have been aware of their surroundings, be ready for anything while they're trying to get assistance, because there is no way of mentioning of the backup vehicle. At least they should have called some of their people who are around the area, or even to call the nearest police station for that matter for assistance. So I would really think that they were the lack of training also kicks in all of this, because if one of them was busy with the tire, what could he done with the tire, because the tire was finished.
So I mean,
the only person. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. I mean, I know you've worked in these fields. You've been a VIP protection guard yourself, and it seemed to me the obvious thing was that when you have a flat tire and you're carrying a minister, is one of the guards gets out of the car and draws his firearm. That seemed to me to be the obvious thing. In other words, one of the guards is immediately on duty, sort of on, is guarding the perimeter, which in this case is really around the car. And I realize things can happen quickly, and people would have been waiting to sort of pounce, but it seems that didn't happen. That someone didn't get out of the car and immediately, and I don't want to, be horrible to someone who's gone through a difficult experience, but that seems to me to be the obvious thing. The moment the car comes to a stop, one of you pulls out of the car, pulls out your gun and gets out of the car and stands guard.
Correct, Stephen. By virtue of having those spikes on the road, that simply tells you those spikes didn't just dropped off by miracle there. Somebody must have put those spikes there. So somebody's waiting somewhere for any vehicle that can be spiked by these things. So they should have, like you are saying, they should have got out of the vehicle, both of them, not one, both of them, to cover the outside perimeter, to make sure that the prestigious cargo that they are carrying, which is the minister in this instance, is safe. Because like I said, Stephen, there is nothing that they can do, because the tire, they all got finished, and there is nothing. There's no other. If I can put it that way, there is no other spare wheel. Because some of these vehicles, some of them, they come up without having a spare wheel or the small spare wheel. But in this case, there's no mentioning of any spare wheel. So I will say, if they were busy with the tire, they were both fixed into that tire. Hence, they couldn't see anybody coming towards them. Because if they would have seen somebody, one would have seen anyone coming to them, would have alerted his body so that they can tackle the problem together.
I would have thought as well, someone mentioned this on the radio yesterday, that in fact you would think that a car carrying a minister and VIP guards would be on run flats anyway. Those tyres that can run for a while, take you to the nearest petrol station without air.
Yes. If the car, like for example, the minister's vehicles, I would expect that they are running on a what do you call it, on a
run flat.
On a run flat. I'm not sure the damage of that specific tire, because if they were on run flat, at least they could have at least driven to the nearest safe area, which could be the garage for that matter, which could be the nearest police station or the traffic place where they can be assisted efficiently. But in this case, it seems as they've just stopped and nothing came to their help. I don't know. How couldn't they see somebody if they were looking all around the perimeters? I don't know how couldn't they not see somebody coming. Although we hear there were 3 or 4 of these thugs who came to attack them.
Thank you very much indeed, Sledge. Really appreciate the time. Kolisi Sledge Slavana is an independent security specialist, worked in VIP protection. We'll hear from you, Cargo, in Kroonstad in just a moment. 9 minutes to 8.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still that crash on the R24 heading towards OR Tambo International Airport. The collision before Barber Road. The back of the queue is now at Giluli. So our advice has been get through Giluli's, keep it on the N12, down to Boxberger, cut back on the R21 through Jet Park. It'll keep you moving that side and just avoid a massive sort of delay for your flights on that R24. There is a crash on the M1 between Beyers Nordir and Malabongwe, so slow going through the Randburg area. Bit of pressure on the M1 south this morning from Old Joburg Road. Going to sit down towards the point just before New Road, and that's after you've worked through the very heavy queue between Linwood Road and the R21 coming through Pretoria. Durban, a lot of pressure this morning. M7 going up into Pinetown. That's from Hunt Stepman Highway side. That's heavy. Roadworks at the Paradise Valley interchange there. M13 and N3 coming through Pinetown, heavy. The M13 from Westville across the works at the N2 bridge. That is heavy towards Sherwood. There's big queues on the N2 North from the M7 up towards the M13 bridge, and then a breakdown before Gateway, causing another big backlog as far back as almost Queen Dundee Drive this morning. So 2 queues, heavy queues to work through if you're coming from the south coast towards the airport. Durban, Cape Town, the Marine Drive West Coast Road option remains heavy coming out of Bloberg and Tableview down to about the second set of lights at Sunset Beach. The Bayside Junction, Bloberg Road into West Coast Road remains heavy, and no incidents on the highways, but the N1 looking pretty slow this morning with queues coming through from Durban Road at Belleville all the way through to Kuburg interchange. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Everyone is looking for value. There's value, then there's ABSA value. At ABSA, finding it is easy, with value that goes so much further and gives you cash back in your pocket to use for the things you need. Stand a chance to win your share of 5 million rand in cash when you take up an ABSA credit card.
Join the bank that does more and elevate to amazing value. Apply for an ABSA credit card or package today. Offer for a limited period. Learn more at absa.co.za. ABSA is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Have you ever noticed how unique the rugby ball is?
You should check out Head High.
The rise of junior rugby stars Mana and Tai.
Vince is not just their stepfather, he's their coach.
Catch the brothers' dream of the black jersey, Head High, every Sunday at 9 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
# Rugby Drama Galore. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the
At SAfm Radio and at Stephen Grootes on Twitter.
6 minutes to 8. Good morning. Cargo on the line from Kroonstad. Cargo, hi. The issue of VIP protection. Go for it.
Yeah, Stephen, I think your security expert is very simplistic. One, he was not there. He does not know how many thugs were there, and he does not even know what caliber of weapons they did have. Had they went out with guns, and obviously they would be declaring what to those thugs. What if those people had high caliber weapons that could have actually endangered the life of the millions? In fact, I applaud all of them because at least they could be able to save lives, even though they were hijacked. I think we need to applaud them. These people are human beings; they are not superhuman beings, and we do not know the kind of the situation that they faced to arrive at this type of nonsensical conclusions that these people lacked training. I think for me, they actually did what they're supposed to do. They saved life. Then other things, the police will be able to actually investigate and hunt down those thugs. Thanks.
All right. No, Cargo, look, I mean, I'd like to know that the police would investigate and find them, but I mean, I don't know if that will happen. But Cargo and Kroonstad, you raise an important point. None of us were there. Thank you.
SAfm.
Well, yesterday news from Rand Water that they've announced, or it's this week in fact, that Fitch Ratings, the global ratings company, essentially has given them what's called a long-term rating at AA+ with a stable outlook. Now, of course, Rand Water, all sorts of issues around water recently for various reasons. Sipho Masai is the CEO at Rand Water. Sipho, good morning.
Good morning, Stephen. Thank you for having us.
At a sort of high level, sort of management level, getting a ratings affirmation like this by Fitch, you must be very pleased. It shows that the way they view things, you're doing very well, you're managing the money properly, etc. All of that's important stuff, and you need to get it right, and you clearly are. For most other people, though, it's all about getting water into the taps, and they will complain. So, on the one side, you seem to be doing well with managing the money, the assets. I think for other people, they'll say, but that's not your job. Your job is to, get water in the taps, and there are problems there. How do you see it?
Yes, Stephen, I think they are intertwined. I think you need money to operate, to maintain, to upgrade, to refurbish. And if you look at that rating, it's not a numbers issues only. What they do, they look at their business both qualitatively and quantitatively. Quantitatively, this is where the numbers come in terms of your infrastructure, in terms of the balance sheets and your financials, but qualitatively, they really they dive deep into the operations, the business model, and how solid this business is run. From that point of view, numbers don't make themselves, but the operations make the numbers, and they go to an extent. They also go beyond the numbers, and I think let me just very quickly indicate how they're intertwined. Water is a self-sustaining institution, business enterprise. Although we are a public entity, we don't get funding from the fiscus, so we generate our revenue, cover our costs, maintenance costs, operational costs in terms of employees, in terms of chemicals that we buy, and the water that we buy from the Department of Water and Sanitation. And for that, we need to then generate profit, and for two reasons, for the purpose of this discussion. One, to refurbish our infrastructure. We use cash we generate from operations to refurbish that infrastructure. So you will, of course, agree with me that the refurbish of infrastructure is linked to water provision. But secondly, you need to augment your infrastructure, build new infrastructure. And for that, you go into the marketplace using your balance sheet. Because as I say, you don't get money externally. So there is a relationship between this rating, getting access to the money, and building the infrastructure. You'll recall on the 31st of August, you interviewed me. We were building additional augmentation facility in Vereeniging, adding 150. In February, we built the largest post-tension concrete reservoir in the world. So we use long-term liabilities for long-term assets to continue to run this operation. So there is a linkage.
Okay. No, I understand that. For people in the short term now, there's been a little bit of rain in Gauteng, so that might have reduced some of the consumption. Still big problems. I know. I think the Gauteng average is that 42% of the water is unmetered. In other words, it's wasted through leaks. So then, do you think the situation's about to get better, particularly with more regular rain in Gauteng, or are you still having, I know Joburg Water is still having problems in some high-lying areas of Joburg?
Yeah, we sit with the municipalities on a daily basis. Certainly, as at yesterday, we didn't get an impression that there are problems that are related to both bulk and generally the water that we provide to Joburg. There may be incidents and isolated issues in Joburg that are related possibly to the maintenance and improvement of their system. But by and large, it's not as a result of water availability. And you talked about a very important issue that we have been, in recent times, been very vocal about, and Fitch is pulling that out independently. It talks about possibility of a negative outlook on rainwater at the backdrop of high water losses in municipalities and issues of debt. We also, as you know, we're currently sitting at a debt of about 6 billion, and that, in fact, they're indicating that it may have an negative impact on us going forward. Although the current outlook is stable and AA+ is high quality credit rating, that not only talks about the numbers but how this business is run. against really what has been said by the detractors in recent times. And this is, for us, an independent, award-winning institution, internationally based, that has given us this vote of confidence in terms of how this outfit is run.
Not everybody likes a ratings agency, Sipil. There's a lot of history, but I hear the point that you're making. All right. Sipil Masai, thank you, the CEO at Rand Water. I think they've got a big briefing later today, so I'm sure you'll hear more news about them as we go through the morning together. Lots more to come. We'll talk tax. Don't get too excited. Yes, we'll talk tax in a little while. You with SAfm leading the conversation. It's 8 o'clock. Outsurance will go out of their way to try and save you money on your car insurance. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand. SMS out to 38462. Now that's good news.
Independent and impartial. This is SAfm News.
In our top stories, Gold One miners embark on strike action and citizens urged to curb corruption. Good morning. Hundreds of workers at Gold One mine east of Johannesburg have downed tools. The striking workers are demanding the employer expedite the balloting process for the new majority union. A section of workers at the mine wants the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union AMCU to be elevated to the majority union. The National Union of Mine Workers is presently the only union recognized at Gold One. Last month, over 500 workers in the mine were forced to take part in an underground sit-in to put pressure on management to give AMCU the majority status. The action forced mine management to interdict workers from engaging in illegal strike or any conduct involving the detention of employees. Gold One miner Patrick Bukuje.
We're striking again because Gold One still don't want to conduct a pilot. But what he done, he busy suspending workers. And then he delaying us as we send a petition to say, please conduct pilot urgently. He don't do like that. What he do, he busy suspending workers, and other workers are still home. He blocked the card. So that is where we strike again, because we're tired.
A 37-year-old man is under police guard at a hospital in Polokwane in Limpopo after he was attacked allegedly by a mob. Police say he was attacked in connection with the murder of his 31-year-old girlfriend. Police spokesperson Hlulani Mashaba says the woman's body was discovered in the man's house. She had been reported missing over the weekend. The suspect will be charged with murder when he appears in court. Police are also searching for the suspects who attacked him. Prosecutor George Baloy is expected to re-examine State Witness Sergeant Vusimusi Mukhane in the Senzumeyiwa murder trial at the High Court in Pretoria today. He is one of the investigating officers called to testify in the trial of 5 men accused of murdering the Bafana Bafana captain in 2014 at Kelly Kumalo's home in Vosloorus east of Johannesburg. The defense is challenging the admissibility of pointing out and confession statements reportedly made by the first and second accused. Yesterday, Advocate Zandile Mshololo, representing the fifth accused, questioned Mukhane about whether the second accused, Bongani Ntanzi, had slept prior to making one of the alleged confession statements at Moroka Police Station on the 19th of June 2020. Mshololo pointed out that Ntanzi was only in the cells for 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Am I correct to say that when accused number 2 was taken to Lieutenant Colonel Ropadu, he had not slept, he had only been kept in the police cells for 2 hours 20 minutes.
I cannot say he did not sleep, because when they are taken to the cells, they are taken by the police officers from that police station.
President Cyril Ramaphosa says democracy in South Africa will be derailed if efforts to deal with fraud and corruption fail. The president was delivering the keynote address at the 2-day national dialogue of the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council at Boksburg east of Johannesburg. Ramaphosa has again called for active citizenry to assist in curbing corruption.
If corruption is not curbed, arrested or stopped, the greatest damage will not be in the funds that are stolen or the jobs that are lost. It will be in damaging our democracy. It will be in making our people have less confidence and have less trust in our democracy.
Transnet says its problems do not stem from a shortage of clientele. The company is facing a financial crisis and has asked government for support. Briefing the Portfolio Committee on Public Enterprises on the entity's finances, Board Chairperson Andile Sangu says financial challenges facing the company can be fixed easily if the requirements of customers can be addressed effectively.
The company does not have a demand problem. You know, many businesses will spend a lot of money trying to get customers, pay money on marketing and business development so that you can get clients, so that you can service and then be able then to generate money because you're out there getting clients. Transnet does not have that. It does not have a demand problem. Clients are there. What is missing is our ability to meet the expectations.
Recapping the top story, hundreds of workers at Gold One mine east of Johannesburg have downed tools. The striking workers are demanding the employer expedite the balloting process for the new majority union. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
And thank you. Those are the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. Outsurance, where you always get something out. Is your cash flow tighter than a Jeffreys Bay surfer's wetsuit? Catch a financial wave by asking Outsurance to save you money on your car insurance premium. If they can't, ask them to pay you 500 Rand cash. That's monthly savings or 500 Rand cash. If they can't beat your premium, claim free and with the same insurer for 3 years, ask them to triple that to 1,500 Rand. SMS out to 38462 for a quote. That's out to 38462. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
A very good morning to you. In your SFM sports headlines, it's rugby. The Springbok captain Siya Kolisi wants to lead the team to a third Rugby World Cup in Australia in 2027. And the Proteas bowling coach Eric Simons, he looks ahead to tomorrow's clash with Afghanistan. All this and more just before 8:30.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, if you're heading out to Joburg's OR Tambo International Airport for flight connections, just make sure you're allowing yourself plenty of time or you're considering an alternative area. A big truck crash before Barbara Road. Traffic is queuing back from Galuli's interchange. You are going to sit in traffic coming in from the south this morning, Clip River Drive. You'll be asked to sit there up towards the Southdale area. You might want to avoid that. And a crash after Bayers Nordia, slowing traffic through the Randburg area. Victoria's N1 still pretty solid from Linwood Road. It didn't quite get back to the N4 this morning, but Linwood Road all the way down to the R21 remains heavy. Now, if you're driving from Pietermaritzburg to Durban, stationary truck at Umlas Road, that's pushing traffic back through Linfield Park and halfway back towards sort of Ashburton territory, so that's heavy. Also, breakdown into North before Gateway, still with us, heavy queues there on your way to King Shaka International Airport. Queues standing right back to Queen Nandi Drive. And Cape Town still really dreadfully backed up about a table view at this hour, particularly West Coast Road, from Sunningdale, from the Parklands area, all the way through to the first lights at, the second lights actually at Sunset Beach. The Bayside Junction is a mess on Bloberg Road at that West Coast Road junction as well. And there's some pressure if you're heading onto the South Peninsula this morning. Main road sitting between Muizenberg and Corker Bay. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
SAfm Sunrise. A vivid start to your day.
Hey, good morning. 9 after 8. You're with SAfm Sunrise. I'm Stephen Grootes. You know the number this morning, 086 000 2032. Excuse me, talking about issues around crime, water. We've been talking about that. We'll talk about tax in a little while. There are other important conversations to have around corruption, what the President was talking yesterday and how we look at it. But I think also the issue around how crime is just affecting everyone. And Sindisiwe Chikunga, the Transport Minister, of course, being affected by that in a horrible way this week. We'll talk about holidays. And I think just the idea of taking a break, relaxing, refreshing, those things. That's what we're going to be doing from 8:30 and why it's important. We'll just literally go, sort of have a look around, just sort of bring yourself towards yourself and try and sort of bring yourself together and try and just sit down and kind of take a moment. And I think in a way that's what the holiday period is about. Sometimes you do that at home where you're from, where you grew up. Sometimes you do that, home is with the people you're with, your friends, your family. Sometimes you actually do it in your own home because you just can't go anywhere. But you just take those moments, that time, and you just take a small breath and a small sort of pause, really, and just think to yourself about what life is, where I'm going, what do I like about it, what don't I like about it. And you come back in January and you're able to sort of hit the ground running as everything gets going again and the trucks and all the rest and everything starts to move. So we'll try and change gear a little bit for you from 8:30, 10 after 8.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand. It's for our clever who turn 5-liter bottles into workout dumbbells. And for the slim oaks who bring a home-cooked scuff team to work every day. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 45 Rand from Pretoria to Midrand Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
10 of the world's greatest cricket nations are back on the pitch to argue about the next champions.
5-time global champs Australia are searching for their 6th title.
But 2-time winners, India, believe their home fans deserve the 3rd title.
While the defending champions England are more interested in back-to-back victories.
And Proteas are eager to reach the final.
Is it time for the new champs?
Witness the incredible game from 5 October to 19 November on S3 and SABC+.
Subscription fees do not apply. SABC Sports is the official broadcaster of the ICC Men's ODI Cricket World Cup, India 2023.
Hashtag the journey of the ultimate glory.
For the love of the game.
SAfm. Prime time all day long.
And Paul, on the line from Cape Town. And Paul, hi. The minister and that robbery, go for it.
Yes, Steve, good morning. So the transport minister get robbed on the national highway with the bodyguards, and I mean it says a lot. It says a lot that people of South Africans are always complaining about this type of incident, and those people, it happens with them without bodyguards.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I'm not judging the bodyguards and all that things, but you can also question the type of training that they have, right? That they were not even able to fight back, right?
Yeah,
but they are supposed to protect the minister, who is the transport minister, who's also involved in this type of. I don't know how much involvement she is with the Central and all other things.
Yeah.
But they need to put some sort of mechanisms. I mean, if you look at now these robbers, they are doing it every day.
Yeah.
And I think it's about time that our leaders are smelling the coffee, because it's also happening to them now.
I just don't know if anything's going to change. This is what scares me, because it requires really hard work. You've got to do things in the police, you've got to do things in society, and I just don't see that national effort.
No, but it has to happen. It must take time, but we need to see that there is efforts put in place, that there is some sort of trying to make it safe, you know.
Yeah.
I remember, I think it was a year back where a minister of defense was held hostage. Right?
Oh, yes, I remember that. Yes, and Mondli Gungubele as well, and Thandi Modise.
These things are starting to happen around their circles, right?
Yeah.
So it's about time that they smell the coffee. They must put measures in place to protect us and themselves, so that we can all live safe. If it's happening at that level now, it can only mean that it's going to be worse. And I can guarantee you now, we are speaking about it now, those robots, they won't find them, because we don't have the right intelligence to investigate and get people behind bars.
All right. Yeah. No, and Paul, I hear you. Yeah. I mean, I think that's a strong point on the line from Cape Town. Siyabonga in Kempton Park, Gauteng. Earlier, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, they wanted an intervention in Joburg. Go for it.
Thank you, Steve. I'm just worried with this NGO, because they are losing a lot of credibility and relevance, really, and they are sort of damaging the names that they are representing, the stalwarts and the activists, because I do not understand where were they when Joburg was exploding, buildings were in fire, Erado Park on the south of Johannesburg, they were protesting of service delivery, blocking the highways and all those kinds of things. They are nowhere to be found. Right now, Joburg seems to be calm, and all of a sudden they want to destabilize that calmness. And you ask yourself, who's interested in really trying to save? You know, I stay in Kempton Park. Last year, Urulin was under DA. Kempton Park was a dump site everywhere, every corner. they were nowhere to be found to protest about service delivery. And when things are calm and quiet and they want to destabilize government, really, you sit and ask yourself, whose interests are they really driving? Because when people are protesting, they are nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
When people that are not receiving the service delivery, they are nowhere to be found. And all of a sudden, when things are calm, they are there. It's really disappointing, really. They are really damaging the image of those stalwarts.
All right, Siyabonga, interesting point. I hadn't thought of it like that, but I mean, I suppose their protest really is about how the situation in Joburg is getting worse. But Siyabonga, interesting view. Thank you from Kempton Park.
First in the morning, SAfm Sunrise with Stephen Grootes.
Well, big conversations this morning involving tax authorities and sort of building, I suppose, an effective, what people would call a modern tax authority. And this is as part of the BRICS a group of countries. We're, of course, a big part of BRICS. We've been holding tax meetings to yesterday and again today. And the theme of it is building a smart, modern tax authority through leveraging people, data and technology. The Commissioner at South African Revenue Services is Edward Kieswetter. Mr. Commissioner, good morning.
Stephen, good morning. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. It's fun to focus on the technology, but I think the lesson that comes from the state capture era and how you've been trying to rebuild and succeeding in rebuilding SARS since the state capture era is how important people are. And we saw people leaving SARS during the state capture era. We saw a commissioner in charge at the time who an inquiry has found did the wrong thing deliberately. And now I know you've been trying to get some of those people back into SARS. How important are people in a tax authority?
Great question, Stephen. People is at the center of everything we do. And we focus on the hard stuff, which is the technical skills to conduct an audit, a forensic investigation, to do an assessment of a return. Those are technical skills, and we can build that capacity and we can hire capacity. Data science is another area, new area. But the area that is often neglected are what we call the soft stuff. And that's harder to do. And that is about the ethos, the levels of integrity, the work ethic. You can't train that in people. Attributes are largely those values and orientations that we receive from our parents and our early upbringing. And by the time you and I are adults, we are pretty much fixed in it. You can incentivize it and you can sanction it. And we do that, but largely you have what you have by the time you hire a person. So very often organizations don't pay enough attention. And what we are saying is for people, we have to go beyond equipping with the technical skills. We have to engage them fully. We have to ensure that they can behave in a way that is professional and beyond reproach. People may not like the fact that we take money out of their pockets, but they must trust us.
I sometimes wonder, I've worked in different places, and one of the things that you sort of, someone will sometimes say, that's not how we do things, or we do things like this here. And the correct thing is to get those correct practices, right? This is how we do things. Or sometimes, and this can be difficult, to sort of say to someone, that's not what we do here. We don't behave like that here. We behave better than that. Things like that. Can that build on itself? You build a culture on itself, and often it does come. I think leadership matters, but leadership at every level matters in these things. And SARS is maybe the best example of that.
And you're spot on. It starts with leadership. So what we have done let me first say, what you're talking about is culture, and culture is not one big thing that you do. It is many, many little things. Every time you agree to something, every time you omit to call out bad behavior, every time you fail to reward and celebrate good behavior. So it's doing many, many little things. But also it has to do with setting clear expectations. So in what we have done is, for example, on the first day, I wrote a letter to every employee. I made it clear where we stood on state capture. I made it clear what they can expect and hold me accountable for, and then followed with what I would hold them accountable for. And we lived by that compact every day. In addition, we did not assume everyone would know what the behaviors are that is expected of a SARS leader. So we have a very clear leadership model, sets out from the internal personal proficiency to the work we do to what we stand for. And then we also have a clear framework for the engagement of people. We say every employee has 5 rights, and it is up to us as leaders to facilitate the experience of those rights. So it is about being intentional and deliberate and very explicit as to what that compact is.
It's also, I mean, you can have a leadership in an organization and almost take that leadership out of that organization. By what I mean is someone will point to someone and say, do you know that that person works for SARS? You know, you must take that person seriously. And I've seen organizations like that in our society where people will point to a person and say, do you know that person they work for this organization? I mean, you know, another sort of easier example would be, you know, do you know that that person worked with Siya Kolisi? Or something like that, you know. There are all sorts of these examples.
Mm-hmm.
You can take what people, you know, what people might learn at SARS or in other places, and that leadership can spread through society if it's done correctly.
And that is where I think we fall short. We don't do enough of that broad societal leadership investment. We appoint someone as a minister in cabinet and just assume that they know what to do and how to behave. We appoint someone as a director general in a department, and we just think that they will have what they have. We don't pay enough attention to what are the skills and the attributes that are needed. And you're right, there is a universality about it, because at public institutions, a steward mindset, a servant orientation is at the top of the list of attributes, for example. But nowhere in an interview would that necessarily be an attribute that is sought after.
Mr. Commissioner, really appreciate the time. Thank you. Edward Kieswetter is the Commissioner at SARS.
No matter how much you plan, sometimes life happens. And when life happens, there's Cash Converters Cash Advance Loan. Our 30-day cash advance loan allows you to take care of those unexpected surprises. Simply bring in your items such as jewelry, tech and more. We'll keep it safe and you'll walk out with some much-needed cash. Plus, stand a chance to win 20,000 Rand every week. So, visit a Cash Converters store today. T's and C's apply. Cash Converters, we buy, we sell, we loan cash.
The Kosi Nation says, Ikosi alphela umoya, but the Bucks are confident that yonke indawo ibhakabhaka liyaphumelela. Who are the real kings of Soweto? Gold and black or black and white? Uhamba nobani, amakhosi or amabhakaniya? This is the DSTV Premiership, the Soweto Derby. Kaizer Chiefs versus Orlando Pirates on Saturday, 11 November at 2:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAfm.
Well, news this week that the European Union's Developing Countries Clinical Trials Partnership has given a big award. It's called the Outstanding Female Scientist Prize. They've given it to one of our scientists, Dr. Kogi Naidu, I should say, Professor Naidu, actually, who's Deputy Director and Head of Caprice's Tuberculosis HIV Treatment Research Program. And she's also an honorary professor at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Professor Naidu, good morning and congratulations. Oh, wait, helps if I put you on. No awards for me. Professor Naidu, good morning. Congratulations.
Good morning, Stephen, and good morning to your listeners. Thank you very much. I appreciate your congratulations.
One of the things you've been studying is how you reduce mortality, in other words, how you reduce the number of deaths when people have what's called the TB-HIV co-infection. In other words, they have both HIV and tuberculosis. And I remember how excited people in your field were. It may have been you I spoke to years ago when someone was first able to help treat a patient who had tuberculosis and HIV, and I think they made a full recovery from tuberculosis. How difficult is it to treat patients in this condition?
So, Stephen, it's not completely unmanageable. So we've now made it manageable. We've taught clinicians to recognize the features of disease progression. We've identified how to safely co-treat patients with both TB and HIV. What are some of the issues and complications to watch out for and how to work around it? And so as a result, we've halved the number of people that would otherwise die from tuberculosis, HIV co-infection, we've halved that rate to actually improve survival in people that have coexisting co-infection.
It also, I mean, when you do research like this, it tells you so much about how diseases work together. I mean, I presume there was research that came out of it about how HIV actually works.
Absolutely. So we've, Stephen, understood for a long time that people with HIV have compromised immune systems, and that puts them at risk for tuberculosis infection. And in fact, that risk exists across the continuum of the CD4 count spectrum. So whether they have a CD4 count that's above 500 or below 50, the risk for TB is higher than the general population that do not have HIV infection. And what we also understand is that despite being on suppressive antiretroviral therapy, the risk for TB is still heightened when compared to the general population.
And sorry, I interrupted you.
My apologies. So tuberculosis is a very strong feature in patients living with HIV. It's helped us understand where the immune system is compromised in people living with HIV. And it's also helped us identify how we can actually improve a person living with HIV immune, how we can actually target the immune system to help them in the future with better vaccines and better TB preventive therapy.
And Professor Naidu, I don't know how you feel about this. I mean, it's an important award, and that's why I congratulated you. But it is called Outstanding Female Scientist Prize. And on the one side, I think it's probably important to have a prize like this because I know there have been issues in science with sexism, and I think it's important to celebrate people who've been able to overcome the research barriers, but also the other maybe glass barriers that we have in our society. On the other side, some people may feel a bit disappointed that it refers to gender at all. Do you have a thought on that?
Stephen, I think we need to recognize that in sub-Saharan Africa, we don't have enough role models of women in science and in engineering, in medicine, in technology. We don't have enough resources directed at women. Science has typically been the domain of men for centuries. And recognizing that women can contribute to groundbreaking research, can contribute to the health of populations, I think is incredible. It creates the role models. It inspires other women to work harder and to achieve greater heights. So I absolutely disagree with a sexist perspective because people need to recognize that women can't and haven't been able to have equitable access to resources and support to advance their own science and their own careers in research.
Important points. Professor Naidu, thank you. I really do appreciate the time and congratulations again. Professor Kogi Naidu is the Deputy Director and Head of Caprice's TB HIV Treatment Research Problem and an Honorary Research Professor at the University of KwaZulu-Natal.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning. Siya Kolisi wants another World Cup.
Yes, will he be available? Yes, he is. He's laid out his intent to lead the Springboks to a third Rugby World Cup in Australia come 2027. Now, the Boks are only set to return to action in the July test window in 2024 when they are penciled in to host Ireland. Now, Rassie Erasmus, we know, confirming that he will resume control of the team as head coach for the time being. Cricket now, South Africa will take on Afghanistan in Ahmedabad tomorrow, and with the Proteas having qualified for the semi-finals, this fixture carries weight in preparations for that semi-final against Australia. Bowling coach Eric Simons looks at the Afghan danger man Rashid Khan.
Important thing for us is that we do not allow the batsman to dictate our tactics. We talk about someone like Rashid Khan is what I call a disruptor. The way that he bats is very disrupting, hits the ball in strange areas, and before you know it, you've bowled balls at him. And with respect, he's also disrupt the way that he comes to the wicket and the way that he bats. They disrupt you and they take you off your game, or they can take you off your game plan. It's important that you don't allow that to.
Moving now to golf, and the South African professional golfer Xander Lombard looking forward to teeing up to the 2023 Nedbank Golf Challenge at Sun City. The 40th edition of Africa's Major has once again attracted a star-studded field for next week's DP World Tour Championship taking place in Dubai. Now, these include the two-time champions, Tommy Fleetwood, as well as the major winners, Justin Rose, Francesca Molinari, and Justin Thomas, as well as Ryder Cup stars Max Homa and Nicola Højgaard. Now, Lombard earned his Sunshine Tour card in Bloemfontein, says it's special to play in the iconic tournament.
2 years ago, I played that Friday with Lee Westwood and Ernie Els, and it was just special playing with those two guys, and that kind of, I think I had a two-shot lead after that. I think it was a 65, or it was special, and I've gained a lot from that week in terms of how to deal with that pressure and how to entertain the fans, and still focus on your golf. And I think I've matured a lot in the last 2 years since then.
We'll have more sport here on SAfm at around 12:30. I'm Zai Khan.
Zai, thank you. We'll take a holiday. That's next, and your mediated conversation. You with SAfm leading the conversation 8:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa says as South Africa marks 30 years of democracy next year, the country must reflect on achievements and failures made in the past 3 decades. He was speaking at the first day of the National Anti-Corruption Advisory Council's National Dialogue underway at Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. Hundreds of workers at Gold One mine east of Johannesburg have downed tools. The striking workers are demanding the employer expedite the balloting process for the new majority union. And Mark Ranseli from the pop music duo called Mark Alex has passed away. The 58-year-old succumbed to brain aneurysm at the Chris Hani Baragwanath Hospital in Soweto last night. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, the truck crash on the R24, Albertina Sisulu, or Airport Highway, if you like, is still there. It's just before Barber Road. Traffic remains heavy from Edenvale. You'll want to give yourself extra time to get through that, or take the smart move, the N12 down to Boksburg, R21 north from Boksburg's N12 up into the airport via Jet Park. Just keep yourself moving through there. There's some pressure on the Klip River Drive you might want to avoid coming into Southdale on your way through to Boysons today. Pretoria's N1 South stays heavy from sort of Garsfontein, Atterbury roadside right down to the R21 into the restrictions there. Durban, the N2 North remains under pressure. Also, if you're heading up for flight connections, give yourself some time to get through. There's queues through Spaghetti Junction to the roadworks, and then another queue from Queen Nandi Drive through Komarshu up towards Gateway into a breakdown. Roadworks on the M13 and N3, both Durban-bound carriageways at Paradise Valley. So coming through Pinetown, there's been an extra hold up there. Cape Town, the N1 inbound without incidents, but it remains busy from Plattekloof all the way through to the elevated freeway, and Marine Drive, which should be starting to ease out of Tableview this hour, isn't. There's been a crash just before Racecourse Road at Milnerton. The traffic remains heavy back onto the West Coast Road and back halfway into Sunningdale. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Open the Absa Cash Invest Tracker account and earn the best rates in the market. More than the top 10 money market funds' average returns. Enjoy unmatched advantages at an interest rate of 8.9% per annum. Plus, if you open your account today, you could win your share of 15 million rand in luxury travel experiences for 2. Yes, you heard right. A trip for you and your partner. My Bank does that. Open yours today in less than 5 minutes on the banking app at your nearest Absa branch, or consult your private banker or call 0860 111 515. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
10 of the world's greatest cricket nations are back on the pitch to argue about the next champions.
5-time global champs Australia are searching for their 6th title,
But 2-time winners, India, believe their home fans deserve the 3rd title.
while the defending champions England are more interested in back-to-back victories.
And Proteas are eager to reach the final.
Is it time for the new champs?
Witness the incredible game from 5 October to 19 November on S3 and SABC+.
Subscription fees do not apply. SABC Sport is the official broadcaster of the ICC Men's ODI Cricket World Cup, India 2023.
Hashtag the journey of the ultimate glory.
For the love of the game.
Mediated conversation on SAfm.
Good morning, 26 minutes now to 9. So, today is Thursday, the 9th of November. In just 5 weeks' time, it will be Thursday, the 14th of December, and the last real working day of the year, because Friday, the 15th of December, is a public holiday. I suppose we could call it Siyakalisi Day if you like. And that means we're literally around the corner from the end of the year holidays. You might be able to taste them already. You may be going home for the December period to the Eastern Cape, Limpopo, or KwaZulu-Natal. You may be going on a family holiday. You may be staying in your urban home simply because there's just so little money around this year. And yet I think having a holiday of some sort, a rest, a break, a vacation, is still important, especially when you've had such a hectic year, when so much has happened this year. So then, how important are holidays? How can you maybe give yourself a holiday? Can you plan for one? This is your mediated conversation this morning. First this morning, Dr. Aniso Mbivzo is a medical doctor, a yoga teacher, and a holistic wellness entrepreneur. We'll ask Dr. Mbivzo about why holidays matter. Then planning for one. Annelien van der Poel is the Chief Operating Officer at Debt Rescue SA. If you're going to go away, you may need to save. And then where to go, what to do, where are the cheap deals. Sibusiso Nkwanazi is a freelance travel and lifestyle writer. We start then with Dr. Aniso Mbivzo. Dr. Mbivzo, good morning and thanks for your time.
Good morning, Stefan. How are you doing today?
I'm well, thank you. Firstly, is a holiday, a rest, a break of some kind, is it important?
Absolutely, Stefan. So, a lot of research has shown, especially since the pandemic, that a lot of us are actually living in a chronic stressful state. We might experience rest at the end of the workday or over the weekends, but because of social media, because of all that is going on in the world right now, often we aren't really able to switch off in those times as well. And so what ends up happening is we're in a state of chronic stress, which obviously affects our emotional standpoint. It also has physical health effects as well. And so taking a holiday and a break, while it does feel good, and we can all resonate with that feeling, it's actually really good for your overall well-being as well, and is essential for us as human beings.
It used to be that when you left work, you were done with work, right? Work couldn't follow you. Work really follows you now, and it follows you often in the form of this, I don't know if you have one, this quite small thing that often has a green app called WhatsApp on it. Do you need to take that small thing and put it away somewhere and forget about it for a time? Is that a holiday?
Absolutely. I think disconnecting from our devices is becoming more and more important the more that we start to rely on technology to communicate with one another. And as you say, apps like WhatsApp, social media apps like Instagram or Facebook make us stay on all the time. We're always receiving messages from friends and family. Sometimes colleagues might even message us after hours, or we're just seeing things that keep us overstimulated during the day. And I think what's important to note is that 2023 was actually our first full year where we were COVID-free. I mean, it seems a little bit crazy to say, but last year we were still wearing masks towards the beginning of the year. So, the effects of the pandemic are still, we're starting to see them coming up in different ways. And I think the hybrid working model, people still working remotely, having to shift through those changes this year, has left a lot of people feeling burnt out. So disconnecting from our devices is also vitally important. Even if you are going away on holiday somewhere different from home, take your device away during these times. Switch it off. Let people know that you're taking a break so that you can actually fully recharge.
Okay, so putting the device to one side for a while, does going to a place that is not home, getting out of our normal pattern, so going on holiday is what I'm getting to, how important is that?
I think your physical location when it comes to a holiday isn't so much important. It's more about changing your environment. So you might still be staying at home. As you said, some people are really feeling the pinch this year. And so staying at home might be your only option. But taking the time to go out to one of our beautiful national botanical gardens, for example, going for a walk out into the park and changing your physical environment is really important, instead of just remaining indoors at home and essentially being in that same energy. So we find research shows actually that spending time in nature regardless of whether this is somewhere completely new or somewhere that you habitually go to every week, actually affects our mental health and our well-being, both because of the vitamin C and vitamin D that we absorb from the sun, as well as the fact that breathing in some fresh air, the color green actually is said to calm our nervous systems down. So it doesn't have to be a complete getaway, if that's not available to you, but changing your external environment and spending some time outside will give you the same benefits that you would have if you went somewhere completely new.
I remember reading, in fact, during the pandemic that in some places in Asia, I think Japan, Hong Kong, where people live in very densely populated areas, people would have a holiday in another room. They would move into another room for the weekend during COVID. I mean, things like that sort of work as well. You've got to deliberately change your pattern. I'm not saying put the bed somewhere else. What I am saying is make sure that when you wake up, you don't immediately look at your phone. Change your pattern.
Absolutely. It's about creating a little bit of a break or a pause within your schedule where it feels like something new is happening. And that can be a change of your routine, something as simple as waking up a little bit later, having something different to eat than what you usually do. Changing our patterns and our routines just rewires the brain. It refreshes us. It makes us feel like we're growing, like something new and exciting is happening. So you're absolutely right. Even if it means that you have to take a holiday just in your garden or just in another room, maybe even rearranging your furniture, spending some time to declutter your home over the holiday season and changing what your home looks like. All of these little tips and tricks can help us to feel a lot more refreshed, which is what we need, especially at this time of year.
What happens if we don't get a break? Do we just get more and more tired, more and more grumpy?
Yes, absolutely. It's almost like a cumulative effect, right? We're so used to our cars needing to be refueled, plugging our devices into a charger. We recognize that often the battery will run flat, or we need some form of recharge to keep us going. And the human body and human brain is no different. So what we're starting to see with chronic stress is a higher incidence of chronic illnesses, high blood pressure, strokes. Even cancer has been linked to the fact that we aren't taking enough times of rest and breaks as we should be. So you might feel like you have the drive to keep going because our stress hormones of adrenaline and cortisol keep us almost in an energized state. But what is actually happening on a cellular level is that you're breaking down your stores, and eventually that ends up leading to burnout, low productivity. It can even influence our social interactions with family and friends. So it really is vital to take a break before you get to that point so that you can refuel yourself, especially moving into the next new year.
So a holiday is something we should prioritize, even in difficult times.
Absolutely. I think we're getting to a stage, Stefan, where conversations about mental health, conversations about mental well-being are really coming to the forefront. I'm hoping that we start to get to a point where taking a mental health day actually becomes something that your doctor can order for you, where your doctor can give you a prescription to say, I think you need 3 days holiday, because we're really starting to see, and again, this is scientifically based, that if our mental health isn't what it should be because we're not taking adequate rest, we're not going on holidays, we're not taking a break, that ends up affecting every other aspect of our lives, including how we show up at work and how we show up in our relationships.
Thank you very much indeed. Dr. Eneso Mbizwo is a medical doctor, yoga teacher, and holistic wellness entrepreneur. You were there, SAfm, 17 minutes to 9. Continuing your mediated conversation this morning around holidays. All right, let's talk now about the business of holidays, I suppose. Annalien van der Poel is the Chief Operating Officer at Debt Rescue SA. Annalien, good morning.
Hi, good morning, Stephen. Good morning to your listeners. Thank you for having me.
Just a little louder if you can, please. If we see a holiday as a priority, how should we plan financially for a holiday? Is that still possible even in these difficult times?
Can I confirm if you can hear me better?
Yes, that's better. Go for it.
Wonderful. Well, I think the important thing right now is exactly that word, planning. People's toes curl when we use the word budgeting. So I think it's really as simple as planning. We have to be very, very realistic about our financial circumstances. We know that consumers are struggling immensely. We've had a double onslaught on us as consumers, with inflation on the one side affecting our our living expenses going up. And obviously the remedy for inflation is interest, meaning that our debt repayments have gone up as well. So more cells, we have to take that bank statement. We have to go and look and see, what are we paying for items? Is it what we always thought we paid? Are they most likely gone up if we look at fuel, if we look at electricity and food? And make adjustments according to that. And also make changes where you can. Perhaps there's some habits that we have, spending on items we overspending on. Some lifestyle changes might be required just to get the spending under. We can do that on a budget. But it's really important that we understand that one of the contributing factors to consumers' mental health is the state of their personal financial affairs. It adds on to how concerned they are, how worried they are, and adding to that emotional burden of, how am I paying my bills? How am I putting food on the table?
It can be a simple thing too. I mean, cut out the sort of fizzy drink at lunchtime. Say it's 20 Rand because you're buying it at a canteen or something. That times 5 is 100. You're saving 100 Rand a week. 100 Rand a week times 50 is 5,000 Rand.
Absolutely. I mean, and those are the small changes. And that's why I'm saying that bank statement to see where you tap or swipe gives you a very good indication of, I didn't realize. I mean, and that's a lot of times exactly what it is. We don't always realize some of the habits we have. Small changes, those community papers we get every week that are jam-packed with all the specials. When you are doing your grocery planning, look at where the specials are. You have your list of items you need. See where you can get the best deal. Use your loyalty cards, etc. A couple of small changes can make a massive difference to our budgets.
And then also, the issue of trade-offs. If I give up this, then I'll get a holiday in return. It gives you something to look forward to as well, doesn't it? But it also probably makes you spend your money better.
Absolutely. I think we tend to want to reward ourselves. That is also very much a consumer perspective. Is we work hard. As your previous guest has mentioned, we've worked really, really hard. We are still sitting with the after effects of COVID on our emotional being. So it's natural that we want to reward ourselves. And all we need to literally do is just say, how can I do it in a manner where I can financially afford it? And that's where the planning comes in. So absolutely, we deserve the reward. It's just make sure that you can afford the reward and plan on how you get there.
Annalene van der Poel, thank you. Chief Operating Officer at Debt Rescue SA. Really do appreciate the time. In a moment, Sibusiso Mkhwanazi, the freelance travel and lifestyle writer, about holidays. Where to go on the cheap, 13 minutes to 9.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Let's get you an update. What are we? Around about 12 minutes to 9. So let's zoom in on the N1 in Pretoria and tell you at this hour, traffic still queues on the N1 south from Atterbury down towards the R21. It is a very heavy delayed highway these days with those roadworks around that sinkhole. The R24 towards the airport remains backlogged from just off the N12 split as you get onto the R24 airport highway all the way halfway to about Barbara Road, between Edenvale and Barbara Road, with that truck crash this morning. That is still a delay if you're heading out towards the airport area. Durban, we've had some heavy traffic running up the N2 this morning. The roadwork section around Spaghetti Junction, that's eased, but there's still that breakdown before you get to Umhlanga. So if you're on your way to King Shaka International Airport for flights, there's a backlog from Queen Nandi Drive territory. Looking okay between Pietermaritzburg and Camperdown this morning. Breakdowns and collision scenes around Amlas Road and Linfield Park. That's all being cleared away. Cape Town Marine Drive stays solid out of Tableview and Bloberg. You've got a congested set of routes around the Bayside Mall down to Dolphin Beach, and then once you get past Dolphin Beach, you sit all the way down to Racecourse Road. There is a crash just before you get to that Racecourse Road exit. N1 stays heavy from Goodwood Parow towards City Centre. N2 backlogging from about Langa through to Hospital Bend. Busy on the highways this morning going into Cape Town. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Borussia Mönchengladbach knows that only a win will make their plan to get to the top half a success. But VfL Wolfsburg's game plan is to grab victory away from home to cement their top half position. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Catch the exciting clash between Borussia Mönchengladbach and VfL Wolfsburg this Friday, 10 November at 9:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Do you like surprises? Ah, yes. You're going to love this one. SMS out to 38462 and ask OUTsurance to beat your current car insurance premium. If they can't, ask for 500 Rand cash or 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. SMS out to 38462. OUTsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
Mediated conversation on SAfm.
All right, we've spoken about planning for holidays. We've spoken about why they're important. Let's now talk about the fun stuff. Where to go? Sibusiso Mkonazi is a freelance travel and lifestyle writer. Sibusiso, good morning.
Good morning. I'm laughing because I'm the fun guy, clearly.
Well, in this conversation, yes. Let's just start with what I think a lot of people do and a lot of families do is they go to the same place every year. And I think they do that for a couple of reasons. One is they go to be with family, so they go home, they go to the same place. They go to mom, they go to dad, they go wherever. And sometimes people also, over time, families gather in certain places. Is that a good thing or can it be a bit limiting?
It depends on how you look at it, right? So I think because, as you're saying, people tend to go home. They go to where family and friends are. It happens like that. In December, this is what South Africans tend to do. There's nothing wrong with it. I think for me personally, what goes wrong is that we tend to do the same things in the same way, right? If you are from Limpopo, you're always obviously going to go to your parents' place, but you've never seen another or different side to Limpopo. I tell people this: see where you come from through the eyes of a tourist, right? If you were German and you were in the middle of Limpopo, you would be so curious to see what's around you, whether this is the heritage, the traditional stuff that happens there, the food. I was on a trip to Limpopo and I found out that they make gin and whiskey, and it's award-winning whiskey. It's called Limpopo Reserve. These are things that you take for granted if you're from the area. So there's nothing wrong with going to the same place and seeing the same people, but just do something different and also do it differently. We all go out for something to eat, but try a restaurant. My family and I, one of the things that we do, we theme our holidays sometimes. Even restaurants will say, we will not go to chain restaurants, right? So if we know it, we're not going to go there. We will go and find a Vietnamese place, or we'll find a Canadian restaurant or something different. It just makes you feel like you're on holiday, even if you are in KZN at your mother's place.
What do they serve at a Canadian restaurant? Bacon and syrup?
It's maple syrup. Maple syrup.
If you are going to do something new, and I think a lot of people will be like, oh, what should I do? And then they type in, I want to go somewhere new on holiday, and you all end up at booking.com, right? I mean, how should you actually start? I mean, what kind of process, if you want to go and do something new, something different, something that will make you see life in a different way, how do you find those places?
Yeah, so I say to people, you need to have the type of holiday that you like. For example, if you are into lifestyle, go and find those things that are going to get your blood pumping because it's something you love. If you are into history or tradition or even food, some people have food holidays where they go around drinking and they eat a lot and all of those things. So, but if you're looking for something new, just try and think outside the box. First of all, we only have 9 provinces in South Africa, so you are limited to that. But you can then see what is new or what is new to you in that province. For example, in the Free State, I don't know if people know about Vrede. It's the Vrede Fort Dome. I've been there, and it's the oldest meteorite crater in the world. So if you like camping or hiking or mountain biking, you've done it in Joburg, you've done it in Durban, you can go to the Free State, to the Vrede Fort Dome and do it there. It's just thinking about it. What is different about it? But when you think of the Free State, people go to the same place. They'll go to Paris, they'll go to Clarence. My wife loves Clarence, but I'm like, let's go somewhere else, The Basotho Cultural Village, there's nothing wrong with that. But look for different things. Instead of going to Sun City in the northwest, something completely different. Miracle Waters, you can go diving. It's an old open cast mine, and it's clear up until 10 meters, right? And they have a helicopter, they have a yacht that's underground, and you can go diving. But how many of us always go to Sun City when we're in the northwest, or we do the same thing in the Western Cape or KZN?
I think a lot of people immediately think of the coast, right? Immediately think, I mean, Cape Town will have, lots of Europeans. KwaZulu-Natal will be very busy with lots of Gautengers. Do we sort of forget the interior of the country? Do we sort of forget, actually, there are all of these other places there? And very few people talk about going to the Northern Cape. And I realize that the water at Port Nolloth is very cold. But, I mean, there must be places to go to there.
Lots of places. And I think, so my motto is always, when people go left, I go right. Do not go where people go, because that's all the tourist place. It's always going to be Durban, Cape Town, right? So look at Limpopo. Look at the Northern Cape. There are so many beautiful places that you can go to. And this all depends on what you like I said. If you're into the arts, go to museums. For example, right here, I mean, you are from Joburg, right? How many times have you done the hop on and hop off bus right here in Joburg, Stephen? I don't know if you've ever done it.
Zero, yes, yeah.
But you are from Gauteng. I'm from Gauteng. The typical Gautenger right here has not done the typical tourist thing in our own cities. We don't see it as a tourist destination. We want to go to Cape Town. We want to go to Durban. But there is plenty to do without going to the coast.
It's interesting, though, I mean, because I think a lot of people have this traditional idea of going to the coast, and they want to get away, and there's something about the sea. Are there places at the sea that aren't the kind of traditional places, so away from Durban, away from Cape Town? Smaller places, maybe. I know a lot of people love to go to the Eastern Cape, and there are all these small towns down the Eastern Cape where people go. And I think they go there year after year. I think they go there partly because it's not Durban and partly because it's not Cape Town.
Yeah, it's so easy to be familiar with a certain place. And at some or other points, I'm sure we all get bored. So I always suggest that think about travel holistically. First of all, how are you getting there? If you are going to Limpopo, why are you driving? You can take the bus, you can take the Shosholoza train. I once went down from Joburg to Cape Town, and I took the train. It's 36 hours, but it's beautiful. South Africa is amazing. And also, where are you going to stay? We all want to stay in some 5-star hotel. But, I mean, there's a place in Limpopo. It's called a hammock camp. You sleep under the stars on a hammock, and the houseboats that you can rent here in Joburg. There are certain rivers here in Gauteng that you can stay at. I mean, tree house. So in Mpumalanga, you can go to Shalati, and it is absolutely beautiful. It's an old train that has been turned into a hotel. So if you see it as holistically as you can, to say, how am I getting there? Where am I staying? I want everything to be as different as possible. That's when you are going to feel like this is the best holiday that I've ever taken. I mean, in the Free State, there's the Twin Towers, right? And it's old silos that have also been turned into a hotel. How special and how fresh.
There's other things around it. I mean, often we think of the holiday as the destination, right? And you're talking about the journey. But even in a car, and I mean, many of us will probably travel by car, you would really be able to come across the most interesting places in so many different sort of ways. If you spend 3 or 4 days traveling rather than just the one.
Yeah. I think we all have to just let go of the traditional way of holiday, right? Just for example, if you don't plan your holiday as much as you usually do, I've got an app, it's called GPS My City, right? And you walk through town, you walk through cities, and you get to see different parts that you've never even heard of. I'm talking about Joburg. I did this yesterday on my bicycle. Right, there are underground bars here in Joburg. So I think we have to reinvent this traditional holiday in the car. Do not listen to the GPS. So if we're going down to the coast, why are you taking the N3 to Joburg? Take back routes. There are dorpies that you are going to find there where the food is amazing, where the drinks and the people are so friendly. But if you're going to put in Durban from Joburg on your GPS, you're going to take 6 hours on the N3. How boring. So take the route that you've never taken. That is how you're going to redefine what your holiday is.
Sibusiso, thank you very much indeed. Good to talk to you again. Sibusiso Mkhwanazi, freelance travel and lifestyle writer. Really do appreciate the time. My thanks also to Annalene van der Poel, Chief Operating Officer at Debt Rescue SA. And starting us off today, Dr. Aneso Mbizvo, the medical doctor, yoga teacher and holistic wellness entrepreneur. Well, I hope you've enjoyed being with us. I hope you enjoyed your holiday for the last 25 minutes or so. We, of course, will be back with you tomorrow for the Friday edition of SAfm Sunrise. From Du, Stanza, Zelma, myself, look after yourself. You're with SAfm, leading the conversation. Good morning. It's Thursday morning, and it's 9 o'clock.
Independent and impartial. This is SAfm News.
In our top stories, South Africans urged to